the I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.
Austin from the Austin Young Show.
What's going on, man?
I've been real hyped about this interview today.
Don't lie.
I love punk rock music.
Okay.
Love punk rock music, right? It was I don't know how it was for you, but for me it was like defining at a certain point in my life where it was like, it was like mind opening. For like the way some people take mushrooms, that was punk rock for me.
Oh, hell yeah.
Right? And so when you reached out and then I was looking through your show and everything you were doing, I was like, oh my God, finally somebody I can relate with about this love.
Man, I'm so excited.
So very excited to have you on the show, man. And you were just, what I realized going through your catalog for the podcast is you were just another fantastic example of right when I think I've learned all the nooks and crannies of this DFW scene, there's another person doing something where I'm like, oh my God, who's this guy? And then you're rattling off a lot of these people I've never heard of either. And it's like, all right, we got another chapter of things to work through now. So
that's how I feel with your show.
Thank
when
you.
you do with comedians.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going through it. And then I was like, he got Noogie. How the fuck did he get Noogie? They're like the hardest band to get a hold of.
They were not interviewed. I just played some music from them.
Okay. I just saw the catalog thing.
But,
I was like, okay.
But I think, I'm going to have to double check, but I think one of the comics I know is sisters with a bass player.
Okay.
So I'm going to try to work that angle at some point, I think.
He's a great, but I think their guitarist actually just left.
Oh, okay.
And is like just taking some personal time.
Of course,
so we'll see how
always,
that goes.
Always something. But yeah, man, the show, dude, it's, I really like it. Like I said, punk rock is so near and dear. And I've literally had the conversation on the show a few times of where is the punk rock scene around here that I'm not seeing like I used to. And I was like, I know it's there. I'm just not finding it.
Oh, it's there.
You know what I mean?
It's bigger and healthier than it's ever been maybe not ever been, but it is a very healthy scene right now.
Do you think there was a bigger time of punk rock around here?
Early 2000s under the Spectre 45, with
That's true.
Frankie Compagna and all that kind of stuff. Anthony Delaplano, shout out, love you.
Yeah.
But there was a time in the early 2000s, late 90s where punk was king, but that was also true nationwide.
Right.
I would say the genre has definitely taken some steps back commercially, but that's almost a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I think now people are free to do what they want and experiment again, whereas bands like Green Day, Blink-182 kind of dictated that you had to have a certain sound to be commercially viable, and I don't think that's a thing anymore.
No. And I was thinking a lot about it too, because it's like, it's hard to tell, like, am I just getting older or is there less punk rock?
Yes, we're getting older. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see these kids at the show, man, and I'm just like, where the fuck are you getting your energy from? Like, DJ from Toxic Madness, like, that kid is insane.
Well, it made me really appreciate, like, our generation had guys who cared so much about the business side, which seems so non-punk rock, but you had Fat Mike, you had the guys at Epitaph Records, you had Tim Armstrong doing Hellcat, and I'm sure there's plenty I'm missing, but people who were like, no, we've got to foster our own thing here, otherwise it's going to go away. And now it seems like we're hitting that dip for multiple reasons, but one of them I think is we got to have this new generation of punk rock business people who go, we're starting labels and we're putting the bands we love on these labels. And we're just doing it.
True. Like people like Grimace Records out of Austin. They're doing that with like Boof and Noogie and stuff like that. And they're, these independent labels are truly the lifeblood of punk rock, especially in DFW, because they give a shot to be at the medium level that wasn't here for a long time. And now it's possible to make your way from a medium level label such as like Grimace Records to now something like Hellcat, because there's now kind of a pathway, or kind of like with sports, with hockey and everything. You go beer league, minor league, then, you've got like the Allen Americans all the way through the Texas Stars into the Dallas Stars. There's becoming that framework for music in Dallas.
Yeah, you love to see it, man. Because, Deep Ellum especially goes through so many
That's my hood.
but how long have you lived there now?
I have lived there. So I've owned a place in Deep Ellum for about 4 years now, but I have been going there, renting, and just hanging out there for well over 12 years when I moved here.
So you've seen significant change, ups and downs, and it's you get worried like certain venues close, and you think, ooh, we gonna hold on? We gonna make it through this? And then thankfully, we've been fortunate enough that other venues pick up that slack.
They do.
But you just get worried, you know. But I think like the best example is like Three Links, for instance.
Oh, fuck yeah. I just released a reel today talking about my love for Three Links.
I just love that they appreciate, like, look, you got your nights for the touring bands that are going to sell it out and make your money.
True.
And then we need the nights for the bands that can still only sell 10 tickets.
Oh, I was just
know what
there
I'm saying?
Saturday night. There was 10 people probably at that show.
But it's so important, right? They need that stage time. They need to figure it out.
New bands need a place to cut their teeth.
Yeah.
You know, house shows are a good way to do that. You know, we had Casa Punk. So Ask a Punk shows are a great place to find the newest of new talent.
What is this? Ask a Punk show?
Ask a Punk. It's a series of shows that are at houses, and you just got to ask the right. It's like the Masons of punk rock kind of thing. You got to know somebody that knows it to get in.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm definitely too old for that. I'll never know anyone.
I'll invite you to one.
Yeah,
man.
you'll be my in now.
Yeah, there was one I went to, and it was like Cayuga All Stars, Hans Gruber and the Die Hards, and there was like this outdoor area. People are throwing fireworks into the mosh pit and shit like that. It was pure fucking chaos.
Yeah.
But back to, before I get way too off topic, places like Three Links are great because they give starters a chance to play with, like I said, the medium-sized bands, but also legends like Agent Orange, the Interrupters, people like that have all been through Three Links, Charlie Crockett has graced that stage. Leon Bridges has graced that stage. So it's the place that fosters the punk community. And there's a reason we call it HQ, among the locals, is because it's the only place left, besides maybe Reno's, that kind of fosters the punk rock community in Dallas.
Yeah. And places like Reno's are great. It's just a different vibe. It's a different setting. There's just something about, I
think the ongoing joke is cocaine.
Oh.
I think that's
Well, like Reno seems like a place that they will have music. If you're going there to hang out, they're going to have music. Whereas Three Links seems like the place you went to go watch music.
True.
That was your number one reason for showing up, is there's probably going to be a good band.
That is true. Reno's is definitely more metal and grindcore based, I would say. Whereas Three Links is way more punk, ska, pop punk, all those genres. And then Dada is alternative.
Dada, and I say this with love, Dada, I think they could be the number one venue down there.
They're getting that way.
The only thing that ever bothered me about that club, it was never the booking, it was never the,
Shout out Spoon.
Yeah, the booking's always good. There's always really great independent bands that would not be able to get on other stages because of how they book it, right? Bands that aren't ready for like a House of Blues or a Granada, but maybe don't fit that Three Links group that it's a good independent venue.
It is.
I just want them to inject just a little bit more money or time or effort into like the aesthetics.
When was the last time you went?
It's been a minute. I saw this group Jane Leo there, and they were good. And the show was great. Like the sound was good, stage was nice.
Oh, I'm just asking because they have slowly been, like the last year, they have injected a ton into it. Isaac Davies.
It's been at least 6 months since I've been there. At least.
Oh yeah,
at least.
So they completely finished it. They have a huge outdoor stage now.
See, okay, that was my gripe. Is I went to the patio and there was literally like just trash and construction material all in the back, and it was like, oh,
they're doing it
themselves.
themselves. They're not taking out a loan. They're completely, which I've got a lot of respect for.
Yeah.
Jeff and the guys at Dada are doing it themselves. Like the owners are actually building it, which to me, I'm always a fan of hand built, not bought.
Sure.
So, DIY culture is near and dear to me with the punk ethos, but like Dada is doing a great job. Like Isaac Davies just did a giant mural in the back, and they're building this huge stage. They just had a huge what's the big country musician that just rolled through there? Keith Urban just rolled through there and played a show. Yeah, played a pop-up show there. It was really cool.
I mean, that's really cool. Keith Urban too.
Yeah, well, I got to say Dada just because I've spent the last 2 nights there actually interviewing bands, and Dada gave me a really big shot, and they let me interview one of my favorite bands from high school, We Are Scientists.
Yeah.
So I'm always internally grateful, and that's one of the cool things about Deep Ellum, man, is that the venue owners and the business owners and the community rallies behind you. It's like living in a small town where everybody knows each other in the middle of downtown Dallas.
Yeah.
So it's like a microcosm, and I love it.
Well, Dada has stood the test of time. It's been there.
It's like the oldest running club.
Yeah.
I believe, in
Well,
Dallas.
and
right
that's the
now.
only reason I ever criticize it, right? Is like you criticize the ones you love. It's like, I don't want you to ever go anywhere. I want you to always be here. So I don't want anything to ever go by the wayside to where it's like, oh, we let it go and it went out,
Yeah.
So I'm glad to hear that they're reinvesting. Apologies for the criticism. I care.
Oh no, it's so true. There was a while where it was shit in there. Like it was like
everything goes in waves. You
oh
know?
man, that bathroom was fucking sketchy in Dada for a long time. Jeff,
Yeah.
thank you for fixing the men's bathroom, by the way.
Well, and it's like little things too. Like I don't know about you, but I have my own little gripes with venues. It's like I hate when you're looking at a stage and you can also see directly into the bathroom when it's open, like when they open the door.
Oh, so weird.
It's like
right?
throw a curtain up, something, anything. Put
Or when
anything in front of that.
They don't have the dividers, and like Richard Haskins, I don't have the biggest penis, so it's like I don't really. Which, by the way, great episode, man.
Oh, yeah.
Check out that We Beasties episode
you.
if y'all haven't seen it. That was probably the best interview with them I've seen.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
But yeah, it's weird. Like I don't want people looking at me in the bathroom. It's kind of like when you go to Jexa too, and there's that long line of toilets in
Yeah.
there, and you're kind of like, wow, I feel really self-conscious
Yeah.
right now. A little bit of privacy would go a long way with my dignity right
Man,
now.
I grew up in a small town where you went to the trough with the ice in it. Did you ever experience
yeah.
that?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you got over it fast, and it wasn't until you moved away from there where you were like, oh, yeah, that was a bit much. We could have had a couple little dividers here.
Well, I grew up I came of age in England.
Oh, okay.
And so for me, every bar is a trough over there. And when I moved back to America, like I obviously spent a lot of time in bars when I first lived here. And for me, it was really weird coming back. And I'm like, man, they're like, 'cause I was a bar manager for a while. So I'd be like, man, they're wasting a lot of space by not having a trough. Do you know how much like lines back up here? I'm like, put in one big trough and just let them go for it.
Yeah. Man, so you're pretty well traveled then. How long did you live over there?
About 9 years.
9 years.
I got my degree in filmmaking over there
okay.
from the Northern Film School. I loved every second of it, and man, I miss it.
Yeah?
I really do.
You think you'll ever move back?
At some point, yes, I will be back in Europe. England, probably not. So my brother and his wife live in Spain, and so I've not been able to live near my brother in a long time, and it's like a little piece of me is dead until I'm around him again. So I would love to move there just to be closer to him.
Gotcha. So you guys were tight then, huh?
Yeah, he's easily, besides my best friend Steve, love you, Steve. Sorry, on my show I shout out a lot, so I don't know why I keep doing that.
Do whatever you need to.
But my brother is, besides my friend Steve, my best friend and probably my trusted person in my life.
Is he older or younger?
Younger, 4 years younger than I
4
am.
years younger. Yeah, that's good to have, man.
He's a stand-up comic, so it's kind of
Really?
yeah.
Is he? Is he doing? You said he's in Spain. Is he doing it in Spain?
So they just moved to Spain. They've been in Amsterdam for probably the past 6-7 years. So he's been doing it all over the Netherlands and Belgium.
How's
for
it
a while.
going for him?
He loves it. So he mainly does expat shows.
Oh, okay.
Obviously English speaking shows
Yeah.
and stuff like that. I hope he learns Spanish and does Spanish shows because then his act could come and translate over here, Mexico,
Yeah.
South America. It'd be really cool.
You familiar with Tom Segura?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he was doing that, for a long time. People didn't realize, and I didn't either, but people didn't know that he was just fluent beautifully in Spanish. And so once he kind of really hit it big that first time, he came back around and did full Spanish tours.
Okay.
And he was having to tell people, he was having to put there will be no English spoken because people were showing up and
Smart.
were like, what the fuck is this? And,
Smart.
But yeah, he did that. He would do full English tours, full Spanish tours.
So my wife's family is from Mexico. And for her, it is a big push with her right now to champion Spanish singing bands and, Spanish culture and bringing more of that to Deep Ellum.
Yeah.
So for her, she would love that if there were
Yeah.
more Spanish speaking gigs in the area.
Well, who's probably the biggest group that was a mix between English and Spanish was probably the Casualties, right? Wouldn't they do Spanish shows too?
Yeah, I would say it was probably the more crossover.
Yeah.
I would say Cypress Hill.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
All
'cause
right.
Cypress Hill would do full albums in Spanish, full albums in
Oh,
English.
yeah, that is more hardcore.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so-
that's interesting.
But I mean,
Well, does she know bands around here that are doing that already?
yes and no. I mean, my favorite Spanish-speaking band in DFW is easily Cayuga All Stars. They're fantastic. The punk community really gave them a home.
That's good.
And they have been playing punk venues, shows, and it's funny. I saw somebody wearing a shirt at their gig that said "Cumbia is punk rock," and I'm like, that's fucking true, to be honest with you.
So have they done a full Spanish album then?
Yeah, they just released a album recently, and it's really good. Go and check them out. They're an amazing band, and live, they really do bring the party. They almost bring like a mini Mexican market with them wherever they play.
Yeah,
and it's so cool.
Well, you know it's doable, right? Because so many successful punk rock bands go to Mexico.
True.
And have incredible sold out shows.
True.
So the culture loves the music already, and it makes sense, right? It's like they've had so much political turbulence, and there's so much inequity of wealth, just like a lot of the things here, you know, that you know, English speaking punk rockers would be pissed off about and writing songs about, clearly happens there as well, and on a more extreme level in some cases, right? It's like, did you see in their recent presidential election that just the presidential candidates, but there was like in that election of all these other candidates, there was something like 40 assassinations. You know what I mean? And so it's like when you're living in that type of political environment, there's got to be good punk rock music being made, you know?
And I will say my love is ska.
Yeah.
And the ska scene in Mexico is fucking
good,
awesome. Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, let's get in this. When you say you love ska, you know, because everybody, when they say they like genres of music, right?
Yes.
Everybody's got their opinion of that genre, like what it is and isn't, right?
Oh,
So talk to me about your favorite ska band so I can get a
it's
level
anyone that I'm eating with mozzarella sticks. That's the ongoing joke, I guess. My favorite ska band is Kill Lincoln.
Okay.
I just had Drew from Kill Lincoln on my show a while back ago. They're a punk ska outfit out of Washington, D.C. They're amazing, and they're really changing the genre for the better right now.
What do you think it is about that band that stands out to you? Energy.
Pure energy.
That's saying a lot, though, because all ska is lots of energy in most scenarios.
It's true.
So how are they taking it up a notch for you?
It's the live show is the best I've ever seen. I have seen all the third wavers. I've seen most of the new fourth wave or new tone.
What's considered third wave?
Real Big Fish, Street Light,
Manifesto,
you know, like Less Than Jake, all that kind of stuff.
Where do you think Suicide Machines fit in that?
Third wave.
Third wave? Okay.
And Kill Lincoln just completed a tour with Suicide Machines.
Okay.
So that's why I got to interview him, because they were opening for Suicide
Machines.
Machines.
Yeah, it's a tree show here.
Yeah.
Did you go to that show?
It's fucking epic, man.
I was not able to, and I was just like, man, that's the first show in a long time where I was like, I can't believe I missed that. I got to see them. I mean, it was maybe like a decade ago.
Yeah,
because they haven't toured in forever, right?
They haven't played Texas. They said in both them and Big D and the kids table that were on the show hadn't toured Texas in 12 years.
Okay, so whatever that last show was probably the one I went to then, because it was in like a shopping center. It wasn't like a traditional venue even. And,
interesting.
Yeah, I don't remember where it was. Like my gut wants to say we went to somewhere like maybe Plano or Richardson or something. I don't know.
Fucking weird.
It felt like it wasn't at a traditional venue, and it was a stage that was only maybe 3 feet high. So you were like there, and
so kind of like Three Links.
Yeah, very similar. But it felt like it was set up just for this like weekend, and I had seen them at Warped Tours and things, but that was the first time I'd got to be like up close. And it's like any show, even Warped Tour had a great energy, but when you can be 3 people back at a little small venue, that's just the best. And I just remember having my mind blown, because I knew the performance was already going to be good, but I remember having my mind blown by that bass player, because he's so unassumingly good. Like, I just never realized his parts were that good, because they're just so subtle. They fit everything so well. But when you get to see him live doing all the work that he's doing, you're going, man, this guy's like, he's a pretty underrated bass player. And it's a non-selfish way of playing. And I just remember being just fixated on that, even though the show was just incredible,
Well, they're an amazing band. And one of the things I loved about this last show was because,
this was at the Trees, the recent show?
Yeah, Suicide Machines don't have horn players.
Yeah.
But they brought Kill Lincoln out, all their horn players out for a little while.
Well, I saw that great clip where he ran up to the second story. I think it was maybe the trumpet player, the trombone player.
Oh yeah, and
was
then
that was that show, right?
That's Kill Lincoln.
Yeah. So he's up there soloing for a minute on the second level. And that clip was where I was like, I really should have found a way to go there.
Funny thing is that was on the at Deep Ellum page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that my wife was the one that took that video.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
she's got an ear for it, and slowly. When we first got together, she hated ska. I've been slowly just nudging her into it to where she's finally like, yeah, my favorite local band is Flipping the Combined Effort right now. And I'm like, yes.
Do you remember the first, the introduction to ska, the first band?
Yes. Very well. Like most millennial men, it was Tony Hawk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Goldfinger.
Yeah.
So that was my introduction to it. And I never knew what it was. I heard it, just kind of put it on the back burner. I'm like, I love that style. And then Real Big Fish, I don't know how I got it. Oh, Basketballs.
That's right. That's right. They were the band in the the movie. That's right.
And that's where the Take on Me came from and all that. And so that was kind of my introduction. And then finally, when I moved to the UK, ska was still really big. Like there was a lot more because Two Tone came from the whole northern area of England, and with the 80s riots and everything, like it just became skinhead culture became a massive thing.
Yeah.
And so that was my kind of introduction into it, and then got to see it live for the first time over there. Was hooked.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I've been just hooked with it, and it's evolved massively since I gotten into it.
Do you remember the old Tooth and Nail label stuff? Do you remember that MXPX?
Oh yeah.
So when I was in, that would have been late middle school, maybe early high school.
How old are you?
39, about 39. 40, yeah.
Okay.
And
man, I'm so jealous of your hairline.
It's going in the back. I can cover it up with the headphones now.
Oh man, keep it as long as you can. I went bald in my 20s, and it was
really?
Oh my god, I'm so jealous right now.
Hey man, you never get it all right. But no. I think it would have been late middle school. Actually, I remember because in middle school, 8th grade, but right before I was going to high school, two of my friends, they had a little 3-piece band, and they covered an MXPX song with a high school kid for the talent show.
Nice.
And it covered Chick Magnet.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that was my first real introduction even to, that was probably the first show ever, was this talent show. And that was the first time I realized, like, man, I think I'm going to buy a guitar. I'm going to learn how to do this stuff. I really want to do whatever this is.
So
I
cool.
like it, So after that, I was so impressed with them. I think I dove deep into Tooth and Nail. So it was bands like MXPX, Goaty Hook. I remember being influenced by them.
Band I have not heard of in forever.
Yeah, and I think the only reason I still love it is the nostalgia. Like I might listen to it once every 3 years, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. But I remember they had some compilation video or something. At the time, I didn't even know it was a Christian label. I just thought, oh, look at this music.
But it's weird. They're not. Well, MXPX is not Christian.
Not anymore, but back then they were on a Christian band on a Christian label.
But from what I remember, they weren't Christian. They just didn't swear. So like a lot of people, like parents, I was literally talking about this.
I think if you go back to
recently,
those, I think if you go back to those early CDs, they have some very like, I would bet some money, if I can't think of it right now, but I would bet money there's a song or two that is literally about worshiping Jesus or worshiping God. I'd have to dig deep. I think it was there.
I could be completely fucking wrong. And
I'm real curious now because maybe I'm just thinking that because I knew they were on a Christian label. But I remember diving deep in on that because that was the first time I'd heard fast music, music that was by, because you're talking 90s, right? So a lot of music was very high production. So that was the first time I'm hearing lower production things that sounded kind of DIY, even though it was on a label. And they had some ska band on a compilation video. I cannot remember who it was. I think it was the Supertones. Does that sound familiar?
Oh, the Supertones?
Yeah, I think it was
they're still going.
I think the Supertones were on that thing. So that was my introduction, but I wasn't into it. I was still learning things. And then after that, I went through like the nu metal phase. Fucking
we all did, man.
Love the new. I don't have any shame about it.
I have a nu metal story. It's still deeply connected to me. So I was in a bunch of nu metal bands growing up. And then my grandma, so I'm originally from Illinois. My grandmother and Greg Tribbett's grandmother played bridge together. So Greg Tribbett is the guitar player from Mudvayne. So I grew up down the street from Mudvayne when they would practice and all that. And Greg Tribbett's brother Matt would take me in, and I got to see their MTV award.
That's
and
awesome, dude.
the gold plaques and everything.
Yeah.
So No, man, I still rep new metal. Like fucking Mudvayne is still amazing.
I can't tell you how much I love the revival of Limp Bizkit.
we just saw him at Jexa.
Man, but that's what you want to see. Is they know exactly who they are.
Did you go?
No apology. No, I didn't get to see it. But everything that's coming out online of any clip, I eat it up, man. I'll watch it 4 or 5 times. I was a huge Wes Borland fan as a guitarist.
He's so good.
I just thought, none of his stuff was just horribly difficult, but the guy just has so much style. It's just his own. And I always loved those types of players where you hear that guitar and you go, well, that's definitely him, and not to mention his on stage, the way he dresses and everything was just always real fascinating. But, yeah, I love to see that. And then
it's like Korn with the drums. You know right away if it's a Korn song by that drum.
Yeah. And that was the other. Of course, it was Korn and Limp Bizkit. Those were the big ones that everybody loved. But I love when people hate on it because they're like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. We were covering this music in crappy high school bands.
Dude, Significant Other. If you listen to the album right now, it is aged amazingly well.
Yeah,
I think it's more relevant now than it was then.
I think. I know every person says this about their, like, probably their high school, college, whatever era of music, but I do think 90s, 2000s, some of the best variety you ever got in terms of radio airplay, record labels. The bands that existed that were popular across multiple genres were wildly different, but they were all good.
Yeah.
And it's just something we don't have right now. I know that those differences in genres are there right now, but because of multiple things, streaming, the way we stream everything now instead of albums, record stores and stuff are harder. It's not like you can go to, I don't know what you had in Illinois, but like we had like CD Warehouse and those things here.
Yeah, we had like Sam Goody and Co-op. And
where you could go in and throw something on and put some headphones on and check out a full album before you bought it and see what And it was an experience, flipping through, checking out artwork, right? So that's gone. Artists aren't making money off album sales anymore, so it's harder.
Yes,
it's harder for labels.
I'm going to have to disagree a little bit, though.
Well, and then the last thing I think that's nail in the coffin, though, is these big, ticket conglomerates that control venues and control what gets on the road for you to see in your local venues.
100%. 100%.
Oh, you were saying you disagreed. Please go on.
So I completely agree with Ticketmaster and Live Nation completely messing up the industry. They are literally killing bands. And what I mean by that is bands are dying. Like there's less and less new bands coming out because it's become now singers and rappers more. They're the biggest selling genres now. You got your Taylor Swift, you got your Kendrick Lamar's. But the problem is with that is that it's suffocating the room around bands, and Spotify is really putting a emphasis on promoting solo acts. And so what's happening now is it's killing off the smaller acts that used to benefit from programs like MySpace or stuff like that. Yeah. It's like how the Arctic Monkeys became huge and stuff like that. There's now more of an emphasis because they only have to pay one person by doing that.
I see what you're saying.
Now, where I disagree with is album sales. Album sales are actually coming back. Vinyl has outsold CDs, tapes, everything year over year consistently. And what I'm noticing is the especially in punk and ska, the vinyl collecting is back full force.
Right.
And to me, that's amazing because like you said, I love to have that thing in my hand. I love to have the lyric sheet so I can actually understand for once what the fuck they're saying. Because let's face it, punk, you don't know half the time what they're yelling about. So it's kind of nice.
So I posted I have a 7-inch Bad Religion vinyl that had a great lyric sheet in it. And it was a 7-inch that I was not familiar with when I found it. So I was real excited. And I'd made a little video just talking about, I love lyric sheets. And somebody, is being a smart ass, and they're like, Spotify has lyrics for all the songs. And it's like, well, first of all, that's not as fun as sitting there with a piece of paper open and seeing how they chose to design it. The graphics, the way is it written? Is it typed? Is it the literal notes that they wrote the song on? It was a window into their personality of how they thought this should be represented, which was always fun to look at while you're having that first listen, right? And then second, Spotify doesn't always get those lyrics right.
No, they never do, because it's an AI model.
Especially with a genre like punk rock where lyrics are coming fast, vocalists sound a little different than your average vocalist. That's not, I want to know exactly, like one of Sublime's albums where they dip into a little bit of Spanish. It was one of the funniest things I'd ever seen for a lyric sheet. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, 40 ounces to freedom.
Yeah, where it said learn Spanish. Yeah. And it's like, and that gives you such a window into this band's personality, which then lets you connect to that music more. And it's way better. The only thing I would say about vinyl that I love vinyl. I think bands.
I'm looking at a wall full of vinyl. Right
actually,
here.
that's a vinyl I got to produce for a local band. So those are the ones we haven't sold. But
oh, really? Nice.
Yeah. But the only problem with vinyl is the barrier to entry. It's so expensive.
It really is.
Whereas in the heyday of CDs, it's such a great format because you could print up 1,000 CDs. You could really afford it. Like a 3-piece band could work some jobs, set some money aside, and they could print it up themselves. Or better yet, they could just burn 10 CDs at a time on a home computer and DIY them at a show, right? Whereas vinyl is just as great as it is. It's just, you got to have some funds and you got to have a plan of, can we move these? Because this is now a $5,000 investment, And
was your recording good enough? You have to have another master because, the same
vinyl mastering
and then distribution. Mm-hmm. You can't ship it when it's 120 fucking degrees outside.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into it, but the overall product is totally worth it.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully you got guys like Jack White who are willing to open up pressing plants and keep things going, and then here locally we have hand-drawn pressing, right?
That's true.
So there are people doing that, which I think long term you'll get costs down, where they're still making money, but they can print them.
And you have people like Deep Ellum 100 that are putting local compilation albums together.
I'm not familiar with that. What is that?
It's Sounds of Deep Ellum.
Uh-huh.
It is a vinyl, and it was recorded at Trees, and it's all the kind of up-and-comers of the Deep Ellum local music scene. So
they just did like a live show with some live recordings?
Yeah, and it was,
awesome.
I believe JT from Cure for Paranoia was the one that mixed and mastered it.
Nice.
It's amazing. It's got people like Maya Piata. It's got Cure for Paranoia, Toccato Vega.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't really any punk on there. Kind of sad about that.
Mm-hmm.
But, they did a good job.
What I really want to do with this platform, with I'm a Fan Of, that I just need to go ahead and do it. And you can steal this idea if you want. I don't care. But I miss the compilation days. Do you remember going to any festival? It was probably mostly Warped Tour for us, but anything where Hellcat Records might be throwing out a cardboard sleeved CD with one track from all their artists. Yep. Fat Records be doing the same thing. And so you could just go through and go and sample everything perfectly. And then you'd go find your new favorite band that you loved. And then Fat Mike, some of the things I loved, like his compilations would be so random. Do you remember Short Music for Short People?
Yep.
Incredible. For people who don't know, it was...
Still have it.
Is it 99 or 100 bands? I can't remember. It was whatever you could max out on the album, right?
I think it was 99.
Yeah, and each of them did a 1-minute song, right? Or, 10 seconds, right? 10-second song.
Yeah, because I think back then it was like, what? You had maybe 120 minutes?
Yeah, I think it was 10-second songs, which is a stupid idea, but it was all the heavy hitters of that genre at the time. And, you could tell it was just this friendly, like, oh, Fat Mike told us to record a 10-second thing for something. Just do it. And it was just the handshake agreements of those days, probably. But how many people were exposed to 99 bands all of a sudden? Famous bands down to nobody. So what I wonder if bands would get on board is I wonder if they would be down for some sort of pay-to-play to help cover the cost of a vinyl, but start making compilation vinyls, where the goal is not to sell these things and make money. The goal is that you got something on your merch table, maybe you can make a couple bucks, but also 30 other bands are pushing these around, and you guys are promoting each other, and maybe all you had to drop was $300 to get them printed up for yourselves.
That would be amazing,
right?
I know KXT is kind of doing something like this right now.
Okay.
They just sponsored. Lost my words there. They just partnered with Whataburger to do a compilation album, and they're going to be at different Whataburgers for the next month, every Wednesday, I believe, giving out these local music compilation vinyls.
I shouldn't be a hater, right?
No.
But what I wonder is, why is Whataburger leading the charge? It's great. It's great.
Good for them. They haven't had a good look at press in a long time, so they probably need it.
But it's like Whataburger is all of a sudden doing music now? Like, okay, thanks.
Venture capital's going to swallow everything into one giant thing. But I'm glad, all that aside, and yes, Whataburger probably isn't the best champion for music.
I mean, if it's getting out there.
Yeah. My question is, because Whataburger is a very religious company, how do they feel about having somebody like, Cure for Paranoia on there swearing and stuff like that?
Are they still religious? I thought they sold to someone up north.
They did. Yeah, it's a venture capitalist firm out of Chicago.
Yeah.
I am sorry for what my home city has done to Whataburger, because Whataburger has gotten trash now.
Man, but that's just everything.
It's
and
true.
And that's what's frustrating. And that's where I'm always asking myself, is this just I'm getting older and this is what old men do, is complain about shit? But everyone I talk to, I feel like, has the same experience. It doesn't matter if you're going to, a fast food place, or if you're going to something more, like a hospital or something. It feels like everyone's pride and quality is dropping every single day, as a whole, at least.
Except for Taco Bell, which has been shit from the beginning.
Taco Bell knows what it is.
Yeah, they're not pretending. We have sawdust in our meat and we don't care.
They never. There's some comic who's like, they never came out with a healthy menu. They know what they are.
I will say, though, if the local staple Griff's ever gets sold out,
yeah,
I'm gonna
Griff's.
probably walk off a bridge, man.
Well, what happened to we're going to make enough to keep this thing running and make enough to pay our bills and stuff so that we're not in poverty trying to always make this thing run. But whatever happened to going, this is enough money to live more than comfortably, and we can keep quality at an amazing level, for whatever it is.
God,
it's just fucking greed. I know.
Here comes my socialist roots
Go
coming
ahead,
out here. Man, honestly, it's just places stopped paying workers a livable wage. Most of the time when I go to a company that is paying their workers well, I always get great service, or the product's amazing. Such as, I know a lot of people hate on them, Patagonia.
Right.
Patagonia is a reputable brand that uses recycled materials, that pays their workers a great living wage, and, has reasonable store hours and everything like that. It's a great product.
Yeah.
Same,
and they're certainly not hurting for profit. They're doing great.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said about that. And I wish more people would lean into that, because, like, I'll pick on like Chipotle. Like, if I went to Chipotle, 10 years ago, you'd go in and they're literally each individual scoop would just have a worker.
Yep.
I'm doing rice and beans. This is me today, or whatever it is. And it's like you had a tortilla person, you had a rice and bean person, you had a salsa person, you had a cashier, you had somebody bagging it up, you had somebody cook it. So there might be 10 employees there, and that line just burning through. Everything was clean, everything was restocked. Now, I'm using them as an example for so many other companies. It's not just them. You go in and they're making more profit than they ever have, in the last 10 years or whatever. But now there's only like 4 people working there for some reason. And
It's
one
turned
person
into
has
the
to run this
Subway.
whole fucking line.
Yep.
Everything's dirty. The quality's down. Nothing. And you see it because the workers look miserable. So it's like, I know what you're doing here. You cut staff. The ones you have, because the good workers are like, fuck this, I'm not working here. I'm leaving. So the ones you have, you can pay bottom dollar, which gives you bottom dollar effort. And we're all just going to deal with it because that's just status quo now. And what are you going to do? You can't talk to the 22-year-old manager who's like, dude, I didn't know I was getting into this either.
Well, they were created and owned by McDonald's,
right?
So I mean, they have basically applied the McDonald's philosophy to them, which is screw our workers. We're going to absolutely, which it's hard because I know McDonald's has sponsored Revolver, which is my my distributor, but fuck McDonald's. So they have taken advantage of their workers, and they've required ridiculously long hours, all that. Now, I'm not saying that's every store.
No.
There are those certain stores where you have a great manager that takes care of their staff, but that is not 98% of the stores.
Right.
And they try to do this big media blitz about, we care, we send our workers to college. And it's like, no, you really don't.
Well, and anytime you have to advertise your good deeds, let's be real.
You're not doing them good enough.
Right. If you have to advertise it, I don't know if I really buy it. It's always cooler when you just do it and all your workers are just like, oh, I was surprised how great it was to work here. I mean, they did this, they did that. When I was young and worked at Starbucks, it was.
I worked at Starbucks too.
So, when I was there, it was I was going there, I was working there and I was waiting tables at Chili's while I was going to school. And so it was a great job for that time period of my life. But also, they still had a ladder. If you wanted to go higher up, you could. But even just as a barista back then, the little perks of like, yeah, you got coffee each day. I think we got a pound of coffee a week to take home.
Good old mark out.
Yeah, and then there was stock option back then that you could purchase. And I can't remember. I don't know if they still do it, but you could work part-time and get health benefits.
Yeah, they still do that. But the biggest problem was, though, because I went through all that and working there, and Starbucks at the time, this is around 2012 through 2014, I think was when I was employed by them. The shifts were so sporadic. You never really had a solid shift or knew what was coming up, so you couldn't schedule things. You barely made enough money to even cover the benefits if you wanted them.
You got in there after the changes then probably, because I would have been there. It would have been probably closer to 2005, 6, 7, something like that.
Yeah.
And man, it felt like a great place. Even the people you worked with, the people who came in, they'd clock in, they had a good time working there. And you go into a store now and they look miserable. And then at the same time, I read a story where, did you hear about their new CEO?
I heard they finally gave Schultz the can, but I don't know much about the new one.
Everyone maybe go fact check me on this a little bit, but what I heard was that this person does not live near the headquarters. I think they meet.
Oh, he's working fully remote. I did hear about that.
Oh, he's not working fully remote. He's flying in on a jet.
Oh yeah, that's good for their green stability.
Weekly.
Oh, my God.
And I'm just making up a low $1 million number here. The salary is probably something like $1 million, $2 million a year or something.
Oh, it's got to be more than that.
No, the ability to bonus was $100 million.
A year?
Yeah, I believe it was at the end of whatever, like if he started working now, a year from then, you could bonus this. And so the idea of you can't hire 3 more workers to make the shift a little easier. Come on. Like it's coffee. Can we, and then you go, I don't know what their profits are. They're $1 billion company.
It's
like, can we, if you made $5 billion, can we be happy with $2 billion? Is $2 billion going to be enough? And I know it's deeper it's a publicly traded company and they have stockholders and obligations. And if they don't try to make more money, they could literally get in trouble for that. But I mean, at some point, can't large companies just, I guess maybe I don't know enough about economics and finance, but can we just keep more companies private to where they can make their own choices and not have to do this shit?
Yeah, because I mean, I feel like once it goes out of your hands, then you are really hand-tied by a board.
Right.
Your ethics are not like Steve Jobs had that massive problem with Apple. When Apple went public, all of a sudden, like, he wasn't the sole control of it and it wasn't his vision. And it just all went to shit.
Yeah.
And then they had to hire him back. Kind of like how Starbucks had to come back with their tail between their legs and hire Schultz back again. So, I mean, for me, I completely agree with you but the problem is once you are public, it becomes a money machine and it just becomes all about profits.
Yeah.
They don't care about workers. They don't care about consumers.
Well, they've created this system that isn't sustainable, which is you have to have quarter over quarter, year over year increase in profits. It's not enough to just say, yes, we remained profitable. We made roughly this much this quarter. We're going to make roughly that much next quarter. It's like, no, we got to make more. We got to have an increase every quarter or the shareholders are going to be pissed.
And I mean, that's what punk rock is really rebelling against.
Thank you.
Is that they are rebelling against these corporate entities. And, I'm not, a finance minister or, an economic person. But what I do know is what is currently happening with American capitalism isn't working.
Yeah.
However, I believe in somewhat of a free market, but I do believe in controls.
Yeah.
And, I believe in higher taxes for corporations. I believe in corporations are not people. Corporations should not get a vote.
No.
Corporations should not be allowed to give politicians money. And that's what a lot of punk is singing about. And the thing is
I'm going to interrupt you because
the
only political candidate I ever fully backed, where we went to some rallies and I truly felt motivated and moved hearing them speak was when Bernie was talking about overturning Citizens United. And I told people, I was like, look, I know he's got bold claims on other things that maybe aren't realistic, but if he could remove corporations from being able to donate to political campaigns, no matter what your political opinion is, this would be beneficial to every single American. If you are hardcore left, hardcore right, whatever, you would benefit from that. Your cause would be improved. Your candidates would be better if they didn't have to kiss the ass of these corporations that don't.
For sure.
And it's the corporations that are playing both sides, by the way. They give money to both campaigns, hedging their bets. And, I just remember thinking like, that was the first time it really hit me. I'd heard this messaging over and over, But when you hear a politician who's been saying the same thing for 20, 30 years, and you're just thinking, God, he's so right. That is one of the main points that we got to get rid of if we're ever going to have our country back as Americans. Again, no matter which side of the political spectrum you're on, that's got to change.
Same, because there's it also happens with nonprofits. A lot of these corporations start these shell charities or foundations, and what their real motivation is business. They're furthering their business interests. It's not actually to provide a service or to help people. There are foundations and charities that do amazing work, not knocking them at all, but there are all these other ones that are like the Project 2025. Tell me that's a real charity or foundation. It's bullshit. And
there's just so many clever ways for corporations to hide money.
It's true.
And if you're going to be a business in this country, and you want to be a full-on capitalist, I don't take any issue, but you need to be contributing your appropriate amount to the people that are making you your wealth, right? Whether that's your workers or your customers, right? Your workers need to be paid, and your customers, we need to get the tax money that you're making off of all of us back into our system.
Yeah.
And then that,
here's where I sound Republican, man.
Yeah.
Because, I'm not. Let's just get through that real quick. But no offense if you are. There's a lot of good ones, man.
Yeah.
Miss the real Republicans. Wish you guys would come back. But for me, it's about if capitalism is going to be the law of the land, then we need real capitalism, because what we have now is not capitalism. The government can't bail out every business when it fails.
Correct.
That's not capitalism. If we're going to be capitalist, let us be capitalist. If we're going to be democratic socialist, let us be democratic socialist. The problem is America is trying to cherry pick from both, and they're not working.
Yeah, the auto industry and the airline industry were the two in my lifetime
Banks.
that I remember. Well, especially banks. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't believe I overlooked that. And that's the thing. It's like, would it hurt if those industries collapsed and had to reset? Absolutely. But would it be a lesson to the future leaders of those industries like, hey, man, you don't run this right. They will let you go under. They don't care. They'll let you lose it all, Because, realistically, if, I'm just picking one at random, but if American Airlines went under, there's still flights that need to happen. Won't Delta, won't Southwest, won't some smart CEO at these companies take it over and just go, all right, it's our move. We better not do what they did, because look what happened. Same thing with the auto industry. It's like, it's insane.
Well, it's like American did that with U.S. Airways.
Yeah.
Whoever in the airlines industry fails, there will be some rich businessman there to pick the bones of the company.
And that's supposed to be capitalism.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be the free market.
Exactly.
And I think if you do that, that does work. If you do it properly, and as wild as it is to think that, GMC could be gone.
Yeah.
But that's the reason our system is set up this way, is you better make sure you keep it running, because somebody else is ready to swoop in and take all of your business if you're willing to let it go.
It's true.
And, and I know it's deeper than that, but the base of it, I'm fine. I'm like you. I'm not a Republican, but I'm a realist.
Same.
I'm also not a Democrat either. I want to take the best ideas from both of these parties, because I think probably my biggest influence from punk rock music was, NoFX. I think that is my number. That was a key moment for me, because I grew up in a small town through 9/11, and then, shortly after 9/11, they released The War on Errorism, and someone showed me that album. So I'm in this small town where it sounds like this guy is talking about everyone I live around. This is the first time, I remember being in those towns. You'd hear things about Middle East and the people from the Middle East, and the slurs and things that they would be, called.
It's disgusting, isn't it?
Well, but at the time, you're so young and ignorant and immature that something feels off, but you can't explain it. You can't say it. It's like a toddler learning to speak. You're like, I know this feels weird and wrong. I'm not sure why or what it is. So then all of a sudden this album comes out. And you're thinking, and that, I don't know how familiar you are with it, but the first track, Separation of Church and Skate, right? Yeah. Like I said, I was listening, the punk rock bands I was listening to was, MXPX and Green Day and they're good bands. No hate it, but it was this whole concept of, hey, this used to be a rebellious thing that called stuff out when we saw, it wasn't this, let's all go to the show with, pillows and make sure nobody gets hurt.
Oh, yeah.
And so hearing someone being like, hey, this isn't it. We're supposed to be, in a sense, battling it out with this music. We're not supposed to be going like, hey, let's put on these great shows, let's make a little money, and blah, 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 And I still love MXPX, no hate. Just that was the example for me at the time is this was very safe music.
Yeah.
And then so separation of church and skate just hit me, and I was like, wow, this is something
because that
different.
Came out, 2002, 2003? Like,
yes.
right, I feel like it was right before the Kerry Bush election. And that was what, the Kerry Bush election is what piqued my interest in politics. I saw that something wasn't working, and growing up in Illinois, I saw, Illinois is one of those weird states where, yes, Chicago is massively Democratic, and they, no matter what happens, however they vote, Chicago will always outpace the rest of the state. So, I grew up in an area where there was a lot of Republicans and a lot of hate and a lot of, just bootlicking kind of thing.
Yeah.
And not saying, my stepson was in the military. My grandfather's a veteran. I love our veterans. Don't think I'm trashing veterans here. But there was a lot of do not question the government. The Patriot Act was coming in. There was a whole lot of like Bush was going to be this American savior kind of thing. And what I think NoFX did was kind of wake me up a little bit and kind of go, wait, something's not right here. Let me go and learn about what they're talking about. And through that, I looked at the information in front of me and started reading news articles and finally went, what is happening in the world is not okay. This is not like fine. We are, a lot like what's happening in Palestine right now of like a giant superpower is coming in and killing thousands of innocent civilians. Like that's what got me, not necessarily the American thing or the American policies. For me, it was about, we are literally killing thousands of innocent people.
Right.
We have to stop this. And I would like to thank NoFX for bringing that to me, and bands like Crass and Subhumans and, all these political bands that really helped. And now you've got bands like Kill Lincoln that are carrying that political message. Another great band is Jer, which a lot of people know him as Ska Tune Network. Go check out his original stuff. It's it deals with a lot of these issues. And now I feel like punk is getting away from the world politics a little bit more.
Yeah. And
now centering on American problems now because, the hate that came out of the early 2000s for Arabs and Muslims and stuff like that is now coming for, Jews and trans people. And it's like, how do we as a society get back to a point of loving and caring for everyone again?
I think a quick aside about that album, the going back to liner notes, like we were talking about physical things. I remember just the idea that they had a clown face on George Bush.
Yeah, that was cool.
And inside it said, somewhere in Texas, there's a village without his idiot. And the idea of like, oh yeah, you can talk back to this if you don't like it. And at the time, I didn't have strong opinions against George Bush. This was kind of an opening of, there may be some things here that aren't going quite like we think they are, because especially being in Texas, this is hometown hero up there running the country. And, just that was a real big first step of like, it is okay to push back and question these things. And of course, NoFX always does it over the top, and that's their style, and I love it. But at the root of it, it's like, hey, there's a way to say that's not right, And moving kind of into what we talked about now, I think a lot of the hate in this country is comes from a fear of your base needs not being met, and I think that's on both sides of the spectrum. I think again, when you have, for whether it's right or wrong, my thought process is that these corporations are what are destroying our country, destroying our politics, destroying our personal conflicts with our neighbors, right?
Our mental health.
I think when you have people who are concerned that, you can work your ass off and not get ahead because every year prices are going to go up on things, and they claim it's inflation while they're having record profits. It's like, guys,
it's not inflation anymore.
Inflation happens. Greed. Yeah, you guys, especially post-COVID, you guys took liberties. You raised all these prices because you had, in some cases, real reasons, but when you only needed to raise the price double, you raised it triple. And you never dropped it after COVID. We never went back down.
Yeah, and meanwhile putting giant tariffs on China so cheaper goods can't come to us. So
Right.
how capitalist is that? Let's penalize other
Right.
countries for bringing stuff in.
Rather than saying, how do we influence these corporations here to put these people here to work, to make our products in a way that we want to purchase them? Right?
Yep.
Because I think the base needs people are worried about being met. I think they're worried that they're not going to get paid enough, that they'll never buy a home, that they'll never be able to afford this and that. And then that ultimately makes you feel, like on a more conservative side, I think one of their big thoughts is, I don't know that I'll ever feel safe, right? And that's why the gun control issue stays so hot, is they feel like, I need these. I might not be safe in a couple years, just seeing what goes down. Again, a base need,
Yeah.
Whereas on the more liberal side, I think they view it as a social aspect of like, they're going to come after my personal beliefs, whatever those may be, and strip them from me, right? So and that fear is where it's just, and that's so easy for these politicians, these corporations to go, yeah, it's that person that's doing that to you. And it's like, I think you're fucking both of us, and you're just telling me it's that person. That same old story of they're taking your dollar.
But do you see the irony in your statement, though, that's kind of funny to me, is that America was created because people were afraid that England would go after their personal beliefs.
Yeah.
And here we are 250 years
Right.
later. Or,
Well,
yeah.
I strongly think they keep us arguing about gun rights, abortion, gay, trans, immigration. All these things are the issues they know we will squabble about publicly and online, at least, so that they can continue destroying it from a business standpoint and just raking in as much cash as possible, right? Keep them distracted, smoke and mirrors, right? And that when you talk to most people on the street, even if they disagree with your personal belief on something, like let's just say there's someone out there who believes, you shouldn't be gay.
Fuck that guy.
But the people that I've run into that are like that are rarely like protesting that we need to get rid of gays. They're just like, well, it's not my thing. It's my belief that this is whatever. But a lot of the ones I meet, and that might just be my bubble, they keep it to themselves at least. And they're not trying to destroy someone else's life. They're just like, well, that's them. It's not my thing though, but that's them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with just going, it's not for me, but to each their own, right?
Well,
and I think most people are willing to do that. We just hear these extremes still,
It's true. And, it's funny to me because you've got people like my grandfather, love him to bits and pieces, but he is for some reason terrified of gays. I don't know why. It's really funny, but yet his favorite artist is Celine Dion. So it's kind of like, it's like, are you hiding something there, Popeye, or are we
But that's deeper stuff, right? It's usually anything that you fear or you are worried about like that, or even hate, it's usually a misunderstanding, right? You don't know enough about this person. It's just the fear of, well, what if they're like this? What if they're like that? And 9 times out of 10, it's not that, right? And
it's like immigration. Like, it's so many of these, here's a story that, so a lot of my family lives in like a really small town in Iowa. Like, it's one of those where the population never leaves because as a woman gets pregnant, a guy leaves town. So it's like the population never changes. And, I think it was really weird when I married my wife, who is Hispanic. I think a lot of people were kind of worried, like in my family. They were kind of like, what's going on? And to me, it's like they had never really been around an Hispanic person. They had never seen what another culture is. Now I'm pretty sure they would kick me out of the family and keep her. And it's true to me that I think if people are afraid, the best thing that you can do is sit down with the people that you're afraid of and just have a conversation. Because like everybody throughout the world and all my world travels, we have way more in common than we do apart.
Well, what is it? That common. I don't know if it's like an actual official thing, but the others, right? Mm-hmm. Like we met your wife. She's good. She's one of the good ones. But the other ones. But then they meet another one and they're like, well, no. That one's good too. It's those other ones, and it's that delusional thinking of, they're out there somewhere, even though each one of them that I meet, pretty solid person. Yeah. And I think that goes both ways, right? Like I think a lot of liberal people will feel a lot of fear towards very conservative people. for similar reasons, right? And I think when you meet a lot of them, you realize, oh, we got a couple disagreements, but they're pretty cool. But those other ones, those are the ones that are destroying everything.
It's true.
And then you meet another one, and it's like, well, no, I mean, I don't agree with them on this take, or I'm not religious, or I don't agree with them on this. But they're all right, and I think that's most of the world, right?
Well, and it's true. And like when I was scared of Trumpers when he first got into office, and honestly, what made me change my mind about a lot of them, yes, you do have bad apples, but you have that on both sides. There's Democrats that I can't stand. But when I started working for Discovery Channel, I was working on car shows. So they would send me all into the deep South to go do barn finds and all this kind of stuff. And I slowly met these people. And to me, we would sit and have common ground. We would just eat lunch together. We would talk. And, before we really got it, that we really agreed on pretty much everything. It's just how it stops. And it's funny because I feel like people are keyboard warriors. So if you're having a conversation to my face, we're going to be a lot better. But you might call me a cunt the next day online. It's just, it's really, I think people have gotten too emboldened with social media and all that. But, I don't think we're ever going to solve the world's problems, especially on this podcast. But hey, if we do, man, then give us a Pulitzer, because that'd be awesome.
The music we're talking about, the music you're sharing on your show, the goal of a lot of that, punk, ska, the idea was how much of it is that unity. It's like, we're challenging these problems, but at the same time, the punk rock scene that I remember is all are welcome.
It's a family.
If that conservative guy comes in with a cowboy hat and a belt buckle, they're not throwing him out.
No.
Not unless he does something crazy, right? One of the best examples of that currently is the Single Wide Bar down off Greenville Avenue. I love that bar, man. You go in there is a smattering of just totally different people every time I'm in there. And we're all just having a drink, and it's fine.
It's the same at Double Wide.
You know what I'm saying?
Like,
we just live closer to Single Wide. But
yeah.
And it's like, well, if it's working here, it can't just be the alcohol. I think people can just chill out and relax. And I mean, the Trump thing, like, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm not a Kamala supporter. I don't like either way. I don't like either option. And a lot of people,
a douche and a turd sandwich,
right? Yeah. South Park. Anyway,
love South Park.
But I understand the Trump voter more than I think I understand the Democrat voter right now, because I get that the Trump people are willing to vote for anything that is different than what they feel like they've been getting force fed. And so I understood that, especially in 2016, when he's just calling out these standard Republicans that have been running the show for a while. And he did what you really should be doing as a candidate. As much as I dislike him, these areas where they were like, no, that's going blue. We don't have to go there. He went, and he's like, yeah, they didn't show up, and I did. Who do you think cares about you? And it's true. It's like, what happened to, even if you felt like you had that state locked down, don't you need to go talk to those people? Don't you need to go listen to them, hear their concerns locally before you run this country?
I mean, I think that's what Harris is doing. I mean, honestly, they're going into those deep areas, and Walz is, for me, I'm more excited about Walz than I am about Harris.
Okay.
Unfortunately for me, I'm worried, under Harris, marijuana might become more illegal again and stuff like that.
Well,
and,
it's weird times that you're worried about that with the Democratic candidate.
Yeah.
That's strange, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the fact that
we're voting for a prosecutor is very strange.
If Trump would just say he would make weed legal, I think this race would be a lot closer.
Man, I think Greg Abbott would legalize it in Texas in a heartbeat if he didn't.
I don't think he will. I think he hates it. Personally,
I don't know. I don't know much about the guy, but my opinion is that most of these Republicans, including him, I think truly don't care. They just have a religious base that will not vote for him if he does that.
But it's weird because most religious people I know do smoke weed.
I think it's just the biggest donors don't. They or they do in secret, and they have to publicly say we don't. Yeah. It's the gateway to all these things, and you can't do that in their mind, but. It's coming. It's going to happen. And
the real gateway drug is cigarettes. That's the real one.
Well, again, going back to the power of corporations, their playbook on convincing us that was not only not unhealthy, but actually healthy in many circumstances. They had cigarettes for asthma. They had menthol cigarettes to help you with your asthma.
Hey, kids, get you some cigarettes.
And we fell for it, right? And they've done the same thing with our food. right? They've tricked us into thinking our food. You remember the old food pyramid?
Yeah.
You're supposed to just eat carbs all day long at the bottom.
Hey, you shut your goddamn mouth. That's my favorite part of that pyramid.
Yeah. I mean, I
How
think,
much dairy we were supposed to be eating off that thing, too.
dude. Yeah. And I don't know. So it does give me hope. Like, I was very excited seeing the volume of episodes you've already done where you haven't really had anything repeat. I think you've played a few past episodes, but overall, it's a different band, different somebody each time. And so you start seeing like, okay, there's still a large group of people that, at least in terms of music anyway, that are concerned about these things and want to write songs. Like,
Oh, it's true.
who was the band on your show where it's a simple, silly song, but it still drives home the point where it was it was
Should have been an email.
No. It was the song about the Russian warship.
Oh,
that
two. I almost wore their shirt
fuck
tonight.
you,
The 2
Russia
watts.
warship or something, or go fuck yourself.
Yeah, Ken and Terry, the drummer.
2 watts, thank
yeah,
you.
the 2 watts, which I love that name.
Yeah.
You know, and not a lot of people get the joke with it either. So
I remember listening to it on that episode, but I can't remember what it was.
So just say the name really fast.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, twats, 2 watts.
Yeah. But hearing him say on that episode, saying, I heard that recording of the Ukrainian soldiers being told, this is Russian warship. We're gonna blow you to smithereens if you don't surrender or whatever, and they just go, Russian warship, go fuck yourself, and then they die. And how he was moved by that bravery and how that they were willing to stand there and do that. That like, I got to write a song about it. And and even if it is only ever a local song on a local recording, the fact that you were like, there needs to be something said about this moment, especially now in this age of social media where that moment's forgotten about a week from now.
Yeah.
So it does make me happy knowing there are musicians locally who are thinking, we got to carry this torch at least in our area here,
For sure.
and hopefully beyond that. But you just never know how that's going to work. But
Well, circling back to something you said where I don't really repeat stuff. Well, I do on shows. I do purposefully repeat songs. Like I have so many unplayed stuff.
no, not
Like, I have a
songs. I mean
okay.
episodes.
Oh, episodes. Yeah.
I think you've only done one. Like here's a throwback episode or 1 or 2 of those, right?
So the history of the show is it started early, like January, the first week of January 2023. So the show in January will be going on 2 years then. And I was at Deep Ellum Radio when it started. I got in a horrible car accident, and 2 people that were kind of involved in the station did some really shady shit and ousted my wife and me out of the station while we were in the hospital fighting for our lives. So fuck them, went and did my own thing. And it's really given me freedom by not being abhorred to a radio station anymore. Kind of like you can do and say whatever you want. And it's been a great learning experience going from that format to the current podcasting style format. And I've really tried to bring a radio quality to podcasting because I was listening to all these podcasts and I just was like, man, I want some music in this. Like, can we break it up and stuff like that? And like, you did it like with the Wee Beasties episode, like you'll play a song from the band and stuff like that. I love it.
I had to stop doing that recently though because YouTube flags it. YouTube flags it. So I really want to bring it back, but I think I'm going to have to make those audio only episodes.
You can, and every band that comes on my show or song that I play, I get a release for.
Well, that's what I was running into is people might be willing to sign the release, but then they are not following through to actually release the copyright infringements for YouTube.
Oh, I got it.
You see what I'm saying? So they're willing, but there's no follow through.
Got it.
And there were various reasons. Like I wouldn't say the bands were necessarily fault. Like a couple of them, it was the digital distributor who, like, I was emailing one of them who was like, "Yeah, I don't feel comfortable doing that." It's like, but they signed saying they want to do it, and this is their music, their stuff. So anyway, I've been debating whether or not I want to bring that back, and I thought if I just do audio only, then I don't have to worry about that.
It's weird, and I mean, realistically, how many listens are you getting from YouTube?
That's what I told them. I was like, at the moment, this is like, I tried to explain to this distributor, like, I'm trying to build something. I don't want all these flags on my account as we're building because YouTube says that doesn't affect it, but it's like, come on.
It does.
It affects it, And it's just a headache. It's like, we're all in here together. I'm trying to promote you. You're trying to promote me. Can we just not do this?
It's not like I'm playing Swift, like,
right?
kind of
exactly.
thing.
Yeah. And I realized, like, you know what? At the moment, I don't need this headache. We can just do the show with just the interviews, and I'll find another way to play the music at some point. But
for me, the audio works.
Yeah.
And then it's, realistically, YouTube is kind of an afterthought for me. Most of my, like, guys, you can find my show on every podcasting platform. Go to austinyoungshow.com. You'll find all the links for everything there. But like for me, it's like I get all of it through listens, because I think the majority of people that are listening to my show are going to work or they're listening to it on road trips. I have so many people tell me they wait to go on a road trip and then listen to like 4 of my episodes back to back.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty surprising how many people, a lot of my guests similar to yours are local. It's pretty surprising how many people outside of not only DFW, but outside of Texas, outside of the country, are for some reason interested in our little pocket of artists here.
Because we're an amazing community.
I know, but I think you get spoiled here and you forget that we're lucky enough to be in an area that has this many artists, this many venues, this many people like yourself attempting to, keep something alive here or grow it. Right?
And there's a history of music in Dallas.
It's true.
We are the city of Leadbelly. We are the city that recorded Robert Johnson. We are, Deep Ellum hosted the most famous Nirvana gig. I mean, this is a city that produced, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Charlie Crockett, Leon Bridges,
Toadies, Pantera,
Bowling for Soup.
Yeah. Yeah, they're here. And that's just, we stayed in one genre of music, right? Then you still have like Erykah Badu and, there's these other people
Cure for Paranoia, all these amazing, talented musicians that are huge.
Yeah, I still think a lot of times, though, the country, you forget, you meet some, I don't know what your experience was moving here, but whenever I traveled a lot within the country, people thought we're just riding horses down here.
I totally thought everybody had a cowboy hat and guns.
You're right,
yeah. I was like, oh.
And it's easy to look us over thinking like, it's the same thing with comedy. There's a huge comedy scene here that does extremely well. And we have more venues than many of the big cities that are considered to be equals or rivals, and it just sometimes gets a little overlooked. And they're having a real surge right now in comedy, so I don't think that's going to last where they get overlooked. I think.
You mean Dallas?
Yeah. Well, at Dallas and Fort Worth, I think Dallas is just hitting it harder right now because they have more clubs here.
True.
Fort Worth, I think, only has 2 large clubs right now. Where here in Dallas, I kind of throw Addison into Dallas for the comedy scene, but we have the Addison Improv, we have Dallas Hyenas, we have Dallas Comedy Club, we have Backdoor Comedy Club. There's even Plano Comedy House, and it's just growing.
I went to a comedy show recently, and I don't know who the venue owner is, but it was not the greatest.
You're gonna have to tell me off air because there are.
It's like a pop-up one.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And I'll put it this way. Their logo is a member of the ocean.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, we'll talk after this.
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't want to shit on anybody, but there are definitely, you know how it is. Even with the music, there are people who are trying to put the best thing out there, and then there are people who do it kind of poorly. And you hope
for me, the comedians were great.
Yeah.
It was just, the show was...
Well, now I'm very intrigued. We'll talk.
Yeah. But I'm going to edit this part out.
No, I'll leave it in. But... yeah, it's a town that can get you excited about stuff. Charlie Crockett was one that I got to live through his rise here, at least.
Okay.
And
did you know him or
not really? I knew his guitar player Alexis a little.
Oh yeah, my wife used to party with Alexis a lot back in the day.
He had his little side band called the Van Sanchez, and I got to work with them on a few things. I got to print them up some merch and
oh really?
Yeah. At the time, I was real hungry, wanting to be not really like a promoter, but I thought I could be somewhat of a manager for this band and help get some things done. And it's just that classic clash of some of the ideas I had, they really don't want to do as artists. You know what I'm saying? And that's fine. And it just didn't work. But they were all great. Like, there was no bad blood as far as I'm concerned. And
he's a cool guy, man.
But at the time, he was... because I loved his solo stuff. He was singing in that band. He was writing the music. And he's got this mix of kind of punk rock, blues, and country western.
They used to play at Lee Harvey's a lot.
Yeah, man. It's a great band. And... at the time, he was playing with Charlie, but Charlie wasn't big yet, and he was in the...
They're busking, man.
He was in the throes of making those decisions of, like, I think Charlie might be making a big run, and I don't know if I'm going to stay with him, stay doing this band here. So clearly he went with Charlie, which was a great
Smartest
move.
decision he ever made.
But yeah, but my wife and I, we had the luck of watching Charlie, at the Freeman,
Yep.
8 Airs, and it
Three
was
Links.
It was that first EP or album, whatever it was, where he's got Trinity River, and it's got that trumpet through the whole album.
That dirty little river.
Yeah, and he's just saying, he's got the albums. He's like, take one, whatever you can offer, even if it's nothing, just take it, And so to see him then go from there to that album In the Night, when he released that, I felt like I was watching. Beautiful. I felt like I am probably not going to see many artists grow the way I just watched this happen. Like I was really fortunate to see this part where that album got him on the road and going, and it was it. And then I got to see him, at the Prophet Bar for performing that for, I think it was like the Dallas.
RIP.
Yeah, but just that energy of wow, one of your own making it. It was incredible.
My wife, before he because we know Charlie.
Oh, great.
My wife used to book him at KNON a lot of the time,
Okay.
and then randomly my wife was at a work thing in South Carolina, and on Facebook he posted like, hey, I'm in South Carolina and Charlotte, and we're or North Carolina. Where the fuck is Charlotte?
I think it's North Carolina.
Yeah. But we were there for something, and we like messaged him. We're like, hey, dude, we're in North Carolina. He's like, what the fuck are you two doing? So we got to go hang out with him in North Carolina and all that kind of stuff. Like, he's just a really down to earth guy, and it's like Pantera in that for our generation. I feel like everybody, all the Gen Xers have a Pantera story.
Yeah.
Starting to notice all the millennials, we got like a Charlie Crockett or Leon Bridges story,
Sure.
kind of thing. And check out his music; it's amazing.
Well, mine, when that In the Night album came out, I was writing, just little like review articles, and so I wrote a review on that. But but I decided to write it because when I ordered his CD, I guess at that time, it comes in a handwritten envelope, and he's got a handwritten note with shitty handwriting that it's his,
Yep.
And I'm sure he was doing this with all of them that went out, but I don't know how many that is for him, And if it's only a few, that's cool in its own way. If it was 2,000 and he did that, then that's cool in its own way too. But I remember just having this genuine, like, hey, thanks for buying this. I want to do this. This is my dream. You're making this possible. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. Sign his name. It's like, yeah, somebody who really gets that this is only possible when you're supporting it like that, when you're buying something. And when I got that was one of the big moments of just my music love, where I kind of got reminded, like, there are really great people still, because you go through these waves of loving it, being a little jaded, loving it, being a little jaded. And he was pulling me out of that little bit of jaded thing where it's like, no, this feels genuine the way he's doing it. This doesn't feel like some phony PR thing, And it was just a great example of how you should run. Again, talking about these businesses, you should care. And if you do care, people respond. Look at his career now. Nobody says anything bad about this guy, as far as I know.
Well, because he's super nice and he's an amazing songwriter, but like he does the one thing that I wish all these for some reason, Texas bands, especially in Dallas, will not fucking tour. And it's
Right.
like, guys, you have got to get on the road. Like, you just have to. It's like, I get it if you've got family and kids and everything, but just accept the fact that you're never going to blow up. Like, because if you do not make it out of Dallas, you're not going to.
I want to hug and kiss you for saying that right now, because as somebody who, a lot of the bands that I get to meet are more indie bands, and this vinyl that I got to help produce is this band Brave Little How. They're a full on indie band. They do these great harmonies. I'll send you home with one of those. That's a unique version of their recording. So go listen to the Spotify thing. This isn't available online anywhere. We did a vinyl exclusive with this.
I love it.
And it was just a live recording that they did with real limited, like no editing. The idea is you sit down and experience this live show in your home. Anyhow, they're phenomenal, but they're guys with families, kids, and so when you talk to them about, how are you guys going to get out there? Like, you're talented enough, you should be opening for these huge bands, and and they bring up the very logical reasoning, the very logical argument that we have family, kids, careers. Like, even if I go on tour this year and we all make, they pay us $400,000 to go on tour, there's 6 of us in the band. And we have families and mortgage, and how do we do this? And then when that tour is over, what if we don't get on another tour and we can't get our careers back? I mean, so I sympathize, but at the same time, it's like, it's easy to say it from the outside, but I think you really need to take this risk. I think you're underselling your potential, because every show I've been to, when they watch you, they lose their minds and they love it. I feel like a year or 2, 3 years of you sacrificing and getting that touring, and I'm not saying it's easy, but I feel like 3 years of that work, you would be set.
Yeah, I mean, you are going to play pack shows. You're going to play shows to 3 people. You're going to, you're going to sleep on some couches. You're going to do all of that. But so what's funny to me is that a lot of the ska scene, a lot of the people in Dallas are teachers.
Interesting.
And what I think is funny is that they have found the career that supports a touring musician.
The summer
you have
tour.
all summer, winter break, fall break to tour. And to me, it's amazing. Like, so if you honestly are thinking about a career change and you're a musician, go into teaching. 1, we need amazing teachers. And 2, like, you get all this time off to go and tour. Yeah. Like, do it. Like, this is why I chose podcasting, because, I've got my regular day job and I play music, but I'm not good at all. So, like, for me, this is my way of touring. And there's one day where I was telling my wife, like, I would love to tour the country and just do podcasts with local bands from all over the country.
Absolutely.
And I'm trying to figure out, well, how can I do that? And like you said, sometimes it's going to be worth the risk, because you never know who you're going to meet. Mm-hmm. You never know what's going to happen or what's going to blow up, and just do it. Like,
well, when you talk to these bands, what are their reasonings for not touring?
A lot of the time they say it's money, but I have literally seen bands do full tours in a van that's about to break down, and they're eating 7-Eleven hot dogs and sleeping on couches. So it is feasible to do a tour, and I'll dig up the video and send it to you. But Jer, who I mentioned before, big time in the ska scene right now, worldwide. He's out of Florida. Did a breakdown of how much it costs to tour as an indie band.
Okay.
And so, like, there are breakdowns. You can do it as cheap. You can do it as expensive as you want. For me, you're going to get a lot of weird smells in a van, so just get used to it.
I had a right after high school, I was in a little 3-piece punk rock band, and I always say we had more ambition than talent. Like, we were hard workers, man. And we were good enough. Like, we made an album, we made an EP, and we had plans to make another album, but then just the band fell apart for reasons bands fall apart. This guy had these life complications, this person had this life, and it just fell apart. But
looking at you, Chumleys.
Tale as old as time, right? But
what is it? Fugazi's been on break for 20-some years.
Well, when we finally, it was, a year or 2 after high school, and, I wasn't really doing anything. I wasn't going to school, didn't have a plan. I was working at just shitty little jobs, and we had this talk. I was like, look, I'm sick of playing local shows. I need to know if people are receptive to us or not. Like, are we in our heads that we're good, or are we actually good? I want to know. And the only way we're going to do that is to go play for strangers who don't care about you in these other areas. And that's going to be, proof. Is this worth continuing, And so we saved up money. We recorded an album. We were working 2 jobs. We paid for it all ourselves. There was this old venue called Fat Daddy's in Louisville.
God. I remember that place.
And I'm so sorry to whoever ran that studio. I cannot think of the name of the studio, but there was a studio literally behind the live stage. There's just one wall. So you couldn't record while a show was going on, obviously. So we were recording the album overnight after the shows were ended, and they were great. And it was all just this great, fun, DIY kind of punk feel, and they did a good job. And then we bought a $200 van, which you probably can't find a $200 van anymore. But, it was a piece of shit. It was stripped out on the inside. There's no, when we're driving through Death Valley, Arizona with no, insulation in the car at all. You're just
like
feeling
one of those
the metal.
Hot dog sizzlers
Yeah,
kind of inside.
the AC didn't work. We just have the windows down. We're just buying, gallon jugs of water and Gatorade, trying to stay hydrated while we're going. And you just go, And for us, it was just this golden time where you could do that, because we booked shows on weekends. And the shows, they just, we weren't anything, so we didn't have any connections. And this is in the days where, like, Yeah, I think we were probably using mostly MySpace to try to get shows booked at that time.
Oh man, Tom was your biggest fan.
Yeah,
dude.
right. And so we would book these shows, and the people who put them on, generous, but these shows didn't make money. So you weren't even making gas money on these, right? You're selling some stuff, but you're not.
You're going to make money off merch, not the gig.
Well,
fees
and there just
all
weren't
that.
enough people at these shows to sell a lot of merch either. So we'd sell 3 shirts, but that really doesn't cut it, So we're burning through money quick.
So you're what, like donating sperm on through every state
Well,
you hit up or something?
we just got real lucky because that was the golden age of Warped Tour.
Ah, yes.
And I just had this stroke of luck where I was like, hey, we're never going to get good shows on a Monday or Tuesday. We don't have connections, and it just rarely happens. So why don't we see if we can get lucky slinging some albums at the gate at Warped Tour? And for us, so we're walking around with CD players and headphones. Hey, we're this band, check it out, while they're waiting to get in. And we lucked out. We sold like 100 CDs, like $10 a piece. And now we had, $1,000 to fill up the gas tank, get some food. So then we went and played a few more shows that were fun, but not making any money. And then we did another Warped Tour stop, and now we sold like 120, 150. And then it was just like, we got to just do this. So we just canceled the shows, and we just bootlegged following the Warped Tour in this shitty van. And every morning, every evening, we were out there for probably 6 to 7 hours a day. Just, you want to check this out? You want to check this out? And we were selling anywhere between 100 and 250 CDs a day.
That's a great idea.
It was incredible. And it was all just because we decided we got to go see what's out there. So that gave us this network where now we've sold, 200 CDs in several major cities in each state. So we were like, okay, we've got to record an EP, go play shows now. We've got something to work with. And then that's what we were doing. And then we did that Warped Tour shtick like the next summer and sold all the EPs, and then the band fell apart. But we sold, I'd have to go look at my old notes. I'm pretty positive in total for 2 years we sold something like 12,000 albums.
Hey, by local standards, that's triple platinum.
In
DFW standards.
And we were so unprepared. We had a safe bolted down in the van, like under the seat, that was just loaded with cash. Because it wasn't like now.
That's safe.
Yeah. Literally like 15 grand in cash just sitting in there in envelopes separated out. Because the beauty was, since we did it all ourselves.
They probably all thought you were drug dealers if you got pulled over.
We had stops with Border Patrol.
Oh, yeah.
Because when at that time, again, post 9/11, you're talking 2000. Let's see, I graduated high school 2003, so that probably would have been 2005 or 6.
Okay.
That we're doing this. And so anywhere along, we're driving in a 15-passenger polka dot van with a like U-Haul trailer on the back full of our stuff, and we're going along, whatever that southern highway is. It's like I-8 or I-10 or something over to California. So you're going through, West Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California. So every Border Patrol stop, they're just like, come on in, pull in. We're going to go ahead and check this out. And,
I probably would have too if I saw you guys rolling up.
That adds up, right? And we're driving because the Warped Tour was all day. So we were driving overnight. So you're talking about like 4 a.m. we're driving. And Border Patrol's like, yeah, let's pull you on over here real quick. You'd have to sit there and be like, listen, here's what we're doing. Here's the things we're selling. This is before, Venmo and this stuff. So it's like it's only cash. I bank with Capital One. They don't have it out here.
Yeah.
We're waiting till we go to Missouri, and then we can deposit this.
They're like, what's Capital One? It's like, have you ever heard of what's in your wallet?
Right. And but the idea that we just bootstrapped it and just figured it out, and it's almost like the music gods reward you for your bravery. That's what it felt like, is like, finally we caught a break here, because I was able to, the band got mad at me for a minute because I don't remember exactly what it was, but I had it broke down where if we sold this CD for $10, which again, the golden age of CDs, right? You had merch, it's like $5, I think, went to recovering our recording cost and saving up for the next recording. And then out of the remaining $5, I think we did like $1 for gas, $1 went to you for every CD you sold as the band, and then I think $1 went to food, something like that. So by the end of the summer, they didn't spend money on most of their meals. They didn't spend money on gas, and then I gave them an envelope with a couple grand in it. Whereas, like, thanks for all your hard work, man. And they were like, oh, no, we're good now. We love you. Because originally they're like, why do you only have the code to the safe? I was like, because you're going to blow your money out here, and you're going to be upset that you have nothing.
It's like, bro, do you know how expensive hookers and beer are right now? Like, it's... I talk to bands all the time, and one was Spencer from the Infamous.
Mm-hmm.
He, stated that they don't do a lot of big touring, but what they make a point to do is every weekend they book a show that's like 2 hours outside of Dallas, or, they just try to do it. So, I mean, even if you can't tour and you have a 9-to-5 job, you still got to find a way to go to surrounding towns outside of the Metroplex. Like, you're just never going to make it as a band if you keep playing the same bars and circuits over and over again.
Yeah.
And there's so many bands that have found that and are not doing that. Take a Rose Garden Funeral Party, for example, one of Dallas's darlings, right? They overplayed the fuck out of Dallas. Noogie did it too. And so what they ended up having to do was like they had to keep going outside to find new people. Yes, you're going to play to 1 or 2 your first couple of gigs, like you said, it's not easy, but you've got to do it to build a fan base and just to do it. And you know what? It's hard. Even if you book an amazing Saturday night headlining show at Three Links, you might only get 10 people.
Right.
But you go out to like Farmersville or, somewhere out in the boonies, the kids in that town, that's going to be the hottest ticket that weekend. So you will probably get way more people in those smaller towns than you would going to Houston or Austin or somewhere like that.
You know what really happened to us that was interesting, in line with exactly what you're talking about, is the first album that we did. There were songs about it's like typical punk rock stuff. You're talking about like immigration, these types of things. So when we were at the Warped Tour stops along the southern border, those people were really resonating with us, which was pretty great. And then, we didn't lie, but we also didn't tell them. They thought we were officially part of Warped Tour, which we were not. We were not. But they bought your album at Warped Tour as far as they were concerned, right? And, so they would just be like, you guys got a set today? And be like, oh, not today, man, not today, no.
Oh, we already played. We already played.
We
guys.
we never lied. We just never told the truth.
We're like, hey, come back to my van and I'll play a set for you.
But they did. They booked us as headliners on these local punk shows, like in Del Rio, Texas, Las Cruces, New Mexico. These areas that were kind of vibing with these border issues at the time that some of the songs we're singing about. They booked us as headliners, and they were like, you might have seen them on Warped Tour.
You're like, yeah, about that.
And we're just like, that's his first song. Like,
oh my God.
But to your point, we didn't think when we were doing this that one of the people who bought the CD was going to be a DIY booker. And these were shows that had like 200 kids coming out to watch a punk show. And it was all their own DIY scene that they did. So it's like, you got to get out there. You just don't know who's going to throw you a bone and just reward you a little bit for all your hard work,
You're really hitting on a subject there, too, that a lot of mistakes, this is another mistake that I see a lot of bands and artists do in Dallas, is that they only try to play to their age group.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, I'm sorry, like, and I've told this to people, too, like, you've got to be going after younger audiences. Like, because if you're not getting a younger fan base, your eventual fan base is going to die out kind of thing, and you're just not going to be as popular. So it's like, why is Green Day, why are Blink having all these big revivals? It isn't just the millennials.
Right.
It's the younger kids that are getting into them. Like Nirvana has had this massive explosion again in popularity, and it's all due to these kids discovering the music. So whoever is doing the marketing at BMI, you're doing a great job getting those 90s bands back out there. But like, that's one thing I will say over and over to artists is you've got to appeal to a younger base. You can't just keep going after the 30, 35s and they're like, well, they're the ones with money, show up and drink at the bar. It's like, yeah, but they're not the ones that are going to grow up with you and give you a lot more money over time.
Well, yeah, it's like, first of all, write whatever it is you feel that's in your heart and record it. Don't worry about a fan base, period. Write what you're going to record, listen to, and go, God, I'm glad I made that.
True.
I'm glad I made that. And
market
then
it to a younger
and
audience.
then go, how many different people can I play this in front of? And just see, you don't know who's going to resonate with it. It may be no one. It may be a certain demographic. It may be everyone. Because, you were talking about like Blink-182, Green Day. I think them, Rancid is another great example of a lot of their fans came in on different albums. Right, so there are people who are like, Dookie is the greatest album by Green Day ever, and then there's other people like, no, Kerplunk is the greatest album ever.
It's Nimrod,
and that's what I'm saying. It's kind of whichever one was that maybe that first listen where it blew your mind.
True,
right? Because then you kind of understood the band by the time you listened to whatever the next albums were, and that's why for me, War on Airism is the greatest NoFX album to me. But to other people, it's Punk and Drublic. It's whatever you kind of, I think, were introduced to as the first time you heard that band and it blew your mind, you're like, that's it.
Offspring Americana for me.
Exactly.
That's that
exactly.
one.
And so, whereas other people would be like, no, it's Smash or Ixnay on the Ombre. What are you talking about? And it's like,
if you say Conspiracy of One, you're just wrong.
but it's the generations of fans, like this generation found them on that album, this next generation. And so, no, don't appeal to one group. Go, like you said, you think they're too young, but they're craving good music. Well, they want it.
And that's why like bands like Casual Relapse in Dallas and like a lot of other people have these like awesome like younger fan bases because they're playing the house shows, which, let's face it, play house shows, guys. Do it. Like,
one, they're just fun.
They're fun.
You should do it.
But that's where like a lot of kids can't get into the venues and can't afford it or whatever. House shows are a great way to connect with that younger audience.
Yeah.
And you don't look like a creep as a 35-year-old man,
There's a reason you're here.
there. Yeah, you're there for a purpose. It's like the house shows are where it's at. Yes, they are a little fucking nuts. That's where you're going to get
But you're in a punk rock band. You should be able to handle this.
yeah. If you can't take a bottle of piss being thrown at you, this probably isn't the genre for you.
We played at a place in Denver once called the Climax Lounge. That's all that needs to be said. Yeah. We played behind a fence, right?
Is it like that from the Blues Brothers?
Yeah.
Where
it felt like that. The difference is there's only 40 people there. And the way... So it used to be the way it was told to me, I don't know. This is what the Denver people told me. But they said it was like the most popular gay dance bar at the time.
Okay, I believe that.
And that's why it was the Climax Lounge. And
why is it so sticky?
Yeah, so something happened. So we're playing behind a cage. There's a huge wooden dance floor in front of us. And then there's like a diagonal, I feel like it was diagonal, like a bar area that was, roped off with like the area you sit at and put your drinks on. So while we're opening, everyone's just in the bar area getting their drinks, and we're playing just an empty dance floor with like a disco ball going,
Felt like the saddest prom ever.
Yeah. But, it's like you'd finish a song and, 50 feet away at the bar, you'd hear, woo, yeah.
When I moved to Texas, that's what I thought all bars were going to be like, to be honest with you. I came and I was pleasantly surprised, let's say.
But I mean, we had a great time at that show, and they were all friendly and hospitable. They knew the headliner more than us, so that's what they got psyched about, But yeah, I think who do you think are the younger bands out here right now that would be doing those things?
That is going to blow up?
No, that are just, you're talking about like younger audiences, house shows. If you're a band who's looking to get into that, one of your pathways would be reaching out to one of these younger bands who's kind of in that area of the scene, right?
Toxic Madness for one, Turd Cutter, Morocco. There's these great local bands that Casual Relapse where they are more house show based.
Okay.
And that's like a lot more of the hardcore scene.
Okay.
Especially. You're going to want to get in contact with them. You're going to want to just make friends. And this is something that I have to say to everybody. If you want to know how to get involved in the scene, go to shows. Like if you want to know who the bands are, what to do, you got to go to shows because that's where you're going to find the word of mouth shows.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to find all that. Like I'm not going to give you the keys to the castle. I'm not trying to gatekeep or anything, but it's like you guys need to go and experience it for yourself. Like it's one of those like go to Three Links, go to Reno's, go to Growl Records in Arlington, an amazing venue that's becoming huge for like stoner rock and the punk scene. Like that's where you'll find kind of the more hardcore bands that the like kind of the nicer venues aren't going to book kind of thing. So, go to RBC, go to all these clubs. That's where you're going to start to find these bands. You got all these bookers like Third String Promotions and all that. And, Mike Zimmer's doing a good job of bringing the emo scene back to Dallas. But, if that's not for you, then you need to be looking for the subgenres and the dirty and the gritty. And the only way you're going to find that is by getting into the mud. So get your ass to a show is realistically the best way to get in the scene. And if you're a band and you're not going to see other people's shows, you're only going to your shows, no one's going to want to book you because you're not really a part of the scene. You're just trying to, profit the scene to your advantage.
Okay, let's say we're back, we're let's say we're 18, we can get into the bars, right?
Okay,
or 21, we can get to the bars, right? But you're just now, you just had your mind blown. You're wanting to get into this genre of music here locally, or maybe you're starting a band and you want to like get your foot wet on a stage. Like, what do you think is the place for the inexperienced, unknown band? Or
oh man, you're asking an Austin Young Show question because I always ask.
Where do you
think
think these people go? Like, if it's like, okay, I've been playing in my garage. I think we're ready to play a show, but I'm scared. I'm not going to get on the 3-link stage right now. Where do you think I go?
Battle of the Bands.
Where are they doing that?
Battle of the Bands. There's always one going on. Like School of Rock does a big one. So if you are in the younger thing, I do say, like, so if you're a younger kid listening to this, like high school age or whatever, join the School of Rock program. They have made so many amazing musicians, such as Toxic Madness, Rose Garden Funeral Party. I think even a member of Noogie came out of the program. There are a lot of these programs that are doing amazing work, right? So find that. Secondly, just Google a Battle of the Bands. They happen, like there's one that the Fort Worth Weekly does every year, and they do it's like a tri-county kind of thing. So they do one in Dallas, one in Denton, one in Fort Worth, and then they come to like a big kind of thing at the end of the year. I think it was at Tulips this year. Follow that. Also, follow podcasters. Like, I know it sounds weird, but we're the ones that are going to be playing it. KXT is not going to be playing Turd Cutter and American Shitstorm and stuff like that. You know, like, if you want those bands, like, you're going to have to listen to us or, you know, just go look out for them. But if you're in the older scene, you know, the 21 plus, I do recommend just try to go to an open mic. Try to do something like
Who's
that.
doing open mics these days?
Opening Bell does.
Okay.
Opening Bell Coffee. And I know you're like, well, I'm a punk band. What can I do? Well, you probably own an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Get out there and play acoustically until somebody says, oh, I like your stuff. And you're like, all right, just, you know, be a folk punker until you can be plugged in kind of thing. So, and it's also, once again, too, I go back to what I said, go to shows, pass your demo out. Just be like, hey, contact bookers. Like, and when me and you were that age, like, Google was around, but we weren't able to get like bookers' numbers off of, you know, Google and that. Google is a stupid powerful tool. 90% of the questions you want answered, you can get from Google, like, or ChatGPT. So for me, definitely rounding this question out is Google it, Battle of the Bands, open mics, and just go to shows. Pass your demo out. Do what you did at Warped Tour. Just stand out and just hand CDs, hand a QR code with your download on it. Like, just become a part of the scene, and you will start getting booked.
The old man in me feels like I'm giving this lesson, you know, like this generation on but
they're doing it, man. The Gen Zs and that are really going after it. And,
but what I would urge them to is, look, reaching out online, all that, do all of that, right? That's healthy if you're trying. That's great. But also, I think a lot of people underestimate the good old fashioned, like, you're at the show and you just go up to the bartender or the door person, like, hey, we're in a band and we really want to get booked on something. Is that something they do here?
Yeah,
like can I talk to talk to somebody about that?
Do you have an email for the booking agent?
Talk to the other band, like, hey, we loved your show and we have a band. Could we ever play a show with you? And it's like that whole in-person thing still works really well as long as you're not a jerk, right?
And it's true. And most of the time, if you like go to Facebook or Instagram or something, usually in their link in the bio shit, they usually say, there's a section on the websites that usually say, for booking inquiries, contact so-and-so. Take advantage of that. Just go and look, you know, there's the old Woody Allen saying of success, like 65% of it is just showing up on time. And it's true. And it's just showing up is a big part of success. And I truly believe that.
As a podcast host, you definitely know about showing up and being on time and how much that can mess
and
your day
bands,
up.
Can I just say, you are like hurting fucking cats, like trying to get interviews booked.
Yeah, how many opportunities did you lose because you aren't punctual?
Yeah, or just like, you'll be like, oh, like, you won't believe how many bands I will say, hey, I want you on the show. Send me your availability. And they're like, oh, I really want to do it. What time works for you? I'll send it. And then just nothing. Nothing. And it's like, and then they'll be like, oh, I want to be on your show. And I'm like, I've given you an opportunity.
Yeah.
Like,
I've had a couple of those where we're setting up dates, you know, we're like, hey, how about this, that, and then you don't hear anything. And then 3 months later, they're like, yeah, so what about this date? And it's like, you are killing me. You're killing me.
You're killing me, Smalls.
What was that? I thought for some reason you changed your mind. What was this? You know?
But to me, okay, so what that means to me is when you do that as a band, it means that you're not serious.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, and it's like you don't care about being booked and promoting yourself, which at the end of the day, don't make my life hard. I'm trying to give you free promotion.
Yeah.
Like same that
Yeah.
you're doing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
You are simply trying to tell their story
Mm-hmm.
and get their opinions on things.
Yeah.
So don't fuck around with me, man.
Exactly.
Like I'm just here to promote you. Like
Or also, you are 100% allowed to just go, I don't think that's a good fit right now. And I go, no problem.
yeah, same for us.
It's not a
We don't
problem.
have to take every interview.
Yeah.
Like there are interviews I've had to turn down, and I'm not going to be mean about it. But sometimes like it's not a good fit. And my show, I will put anybody on, really. Like, I've got, people from, I've had country bands.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have Desi 5 on later this season, which he's about to release a new album in November. And I know a lot of my punk audience is going to be like, why do you have like a soul dance singer on your
not?
show? And it's like, because his ethos is punk.
Mm-hmm.
Like, punk is a state of mind more than it is a genre,
Yeah.
in my opinion. There's so many subgenres of punk, that I think we have to take it away from the music feeling. And it's like, are you punk? Do you feel punk? Then you are punk. You can be middle class, rich, poor, whatever. It's all a blending pot, like you said
Absolutely,
earlier.
man. That's the way I feel about what I consider to be more real, authentic country artists. Is that those are punk rock? Those old folk players and stuff. Those are punk rockers, man. It just wasn't there yet, and so
Johnny Cash was talking about shooting sheriffs and all that shit. Like people are like, I like country because it's God's music, and it's like, well, if you listen to real country, they're talking about some dark shit.
well, there's two modern country people. There's Margot Price and Sturgill Simpson that I would put into that category of they do their own thing. Like Sturgill Simpson's got these, he was a
What about Wheeler Walker Jr. or Hank III?
Wheeler Walker's incredible. He's the
yeah.
number one country artist.
Oh man,
But no, Sturgill's got these songs. Like he has one called a Call to Arms, where he's talking about he's a veteran, and he was talking about his experience of like they'll cut off your hair, put a badge on your arm, strip you of your identity, send you overseas to meet your maker, and all this kind of stuff. Talking this
love it.
kind of anti-war music, and it's really great music, and he does it in this mix of kind of like country and Motown, and it's like, yeah, he's not playing punk rock music, but that's the spirit, and like this guy's incredible.
Well, it's like Charlie Crockett. Charlie Crockett, sings about real issues, and that's where country music has kind of gotten away from me. There's an amazing band. You've had them on, Ottoman Turks.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Nathan and Joshua Ray and all them are, they have kind of taken the whole psychobilly, rockabilly thing and put it back into the country format, and I love it.
Yeah.
And Nathan's solo stuff is great as well. I do prefer Ottoman Turks. Love you, Nathan. You're good. Funny story. So my brother used to date Nathan's sister,
Oh, okay.
and so I remember our parents lived like 2 doors down from each other.
Yeah.
And so I remember seeing the Ottoman Turks like when they were in high school, practicing in their parents' garage and all that, and it's so cool to see where they've started and where they're at now.
Yeah, and that was my first time meeting Nathan, and he was as genuine as I was expecting him to be. It was just nice to know, like, because I had interviewed Billy before on here, the bass player, and they just seem like good guys, and so it's nice each time I get to meet one of them to be, validated. They're like, okay, great, they are what I was hoping they were going to be, and what I've heard.
Well, and it's like State Fair Records, who's their record company. Well, not theirs, but they're on that. They're on that label. It's little, like we said, before with like Grimace Records and State Fair Records. Winding back to that, it's really giving artists chances here to make it onto the bigger stages, such as the State Fair of Texas and all these kind of things. And they're the ones that blew up Joshua Ray Walker and sent him to Jimmy Fallon and all that kind of stuff. And these little independent labels are massively important, and it helps these little bands. And that's what I think you're doing with this podcast. What I'm doing with my podcast is, at the end of the day, like State Fair Records, it's all about the love of music. It's not necessarily about the profits. Now, I know they got their overhead and they got to pay their staff and all that, but I think, and I probably waffling on here or whatever, but my point is that there's the good. There's the company that we were talking about earlier when we were saying, when do corporations have enough? I feel like State Fair Records is a good example of that, and like the small private entities that are truly helping out the common band in Dallas. And that's what the future of music is going to be, is we're going to get away from these big BMI massive companies and go to these smaller ones that are going to self-promote and tour these bands.
Yeah. Man, I hope so. I think a lot about what value a label brings nowadays, because the industry is so different.
I think it brings more pressings.
Like what are they capable of? If I'm starting a label, what is my mission? When I get a band, what am I going to tell them that I'm providing? I think it's trickier now than ever to be beneficial.
I think for you, it's because a lot of bands don't know how to go about a vinyl. So I think as a modern day record company, you need to have your distributors sorted. You need to have your pressing houses ready to go, because most bands aren't going to have that. They're not going to know if they're getting a good deal, bad deal, whatever. And also, bands don't have a network to local music stores to buy vinyl or to put them up. Like the Deep Ellum Community Center, for example, they sell local vinyl. A lot of bands don't know that. And I'm like, dude, if you are a local band in Deep Ellum or the surrounding area, go and take your vinyl there and they'll sell it for you. Like, that's what I think really a record label could be. Or from the point of view, they could be good at helping with touring. Yeah. Like, as they've got a couple of clubs throughout the country that they can get a good relationship. They've got a friend's house that you can go stay at there. So you could kind of set these bands up. That's what I think the real benefit of these small labels can and should be.
Yeah.
They're not going to blow you up to superstar status.
No, I think what I get worried about is it seems like such a losing endeavor in terms of your finances to start a label, that just you're going to lose money forever, right? So it gets harder and harder to potentially, like if you were thinking I'm going to start a label, I think it looks harder, to recoup your money because of limited merchandise and those types of things. And so you get worried that these labels are only looking for people that had, 50,000 Instagram followers, right? Who've done a certain amount of legwork beforehand.
There is something to that. You do have to put in your time as a band. Yeah.
But there were labels back in the day when the pockets were deeper, right? Where you could almost just go, that's talent, and pluck them out of the crowd, and make a run. And so that's all that worries me about modern independent labels, is it's just so much harder to recoup that money that you've invested, that they lose faith and go, we got to go with this thing that looks popular rather than I love this band, Yeah,
because let's face it, most of the people that are going to be buying or starting record labels probably have a good job and have, made their money somewhere, but it is possible. And I think the small labels are amazing because what they're doing that the main labels have lost. So music journalism to a certain extent is dead through, like the New York Times and the Chicago Tribune. They all had local music staff writers in all these cities, Dallas, Deep Ellum included. The Rolling Stone for the longest time had somebody embedded in Deep Ellum that would write all these articles. They've cut all those positions.
Yeah.
So you don't have talent scouts really anymore. Right. But that's where the local labels step in. They become the new talent scouts. They are the ones that are going to me and you. Like, now I'm starting to get a lot of touring bands come on the show. And as my show progresses this year, you'll see I have a lot more bands from all over the country coming on. And for me, it's those small little labels that those bands are a part of. They're the ones reaching out to me going, hey, my band's coming through 3 Links or Dada. Would you want to interview them? And it's like, hell yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's going to help, all of us get better and all the musicians get better, because there is no big BMI or American, RCA talent scouts anymore. There's just Virgin Records is not sending out these people anymore.
Which is crazy though, because you would think if anybody was going to.
But they're waiting for somebody to blow up on TikTok. That's what they're doing. Like you said, they're all about the view counts, and it's all about commercial. And it goes back to what I said about Spotify, that are only promoting the bigger singers. Yeah. Because it always has been about the bottom dollar. Let's not lie. The music industry has always been fucked and flawed.
Sure.
But what's happening now with the independent labels is there's more room, I would say, than there has been in the last 20 years to kind of create and do something different. They're not signing you and going to stick you with like a Rick Ross that's going to completely, change everything for you and like, make the sound his sound, or, like what he did with the Chili Peppers when he took their complete funk and ripped it out of them and, made Californications. There's a lot to be said for these smaller labels. They're going to give you the creative freedom to make the album you want to make, and all they want to do is just put it out for you. Hopefully recoup their costs and send it out. I mean, they need to make money to stay open, but at the same time, I don't think they're thinking they're going to make the record label millions of dollars.
I think they all have other income still, for sure.
Yeah. They're definitely working at Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Well, I recently saw an interview with Frank Zappa where he was giving his opinion on record labels and how to pick bands, because he was talking about how when record labels basically had like stiff, how to phrase it, basically like dudes wearing suits who did not look cool and were about making money, right? That for some reason we had all this incredible music, right? And then when record labels became more independent and we had people who liked certain styles of music, that it became a little more homogenized and less successful, right? And he was saying that he feels like you almost need, I'm paraphrasing, I could be missing some details, but I'll find that clip and send it to you. But he feels like you almost need people who don't understand the music to be pushing it. And his logic was that, you need to be able to say, I don't get this, so it's probably going to be great. It's probably like if the person who signed, Nirvana and was like, this is totally different than what's going on right now, we should probably do it.
Well, I think that person should now be like, local bands need to get band managers. Toxic Madness is a perfect example of it. The lead singer, DJ, his dad is the manager for the band. Amazing dude, but he doesn't know the hardcore scene. He doesn't, that's not his thing. But you know what? That makes him perfect to manage that band, because he can take an outside, like an outsider looking in, kind of go, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Or that, they could be like, oh my God, we're going to go open for, the Spit Fucks, and they're going to pay us $30 and give us, a bunch of merch. And it's like, no, actually you should be playing at this bar in Denton that's not a famous band, but they're going to pay you $300 for a 2-hour set. Like kind of thing.
I think punk and ska gets in this. It makes total sense why they book shows with bands that are all in their same genre, but also you should probably play with a lot of bands that are nothing like you.
Yes, 100.
I don't want to watch
100%.
5 bands that essentially are the same in many respects, and on the big picture of your style of music. The band I think I'm most excited about in that realm is Overshare.
Eric from Overshare, man, is
I was listening
amazing.
to that interview. I was fortunate enough, I got to see their clips before they were really releasing recordings. I found them on social media somehow. It just found its way into the algorithm, and I was loving the live takes and stuff they were doing. I was like, and again, that's kind of that Frank Zappa thing where when I'm listening to the album they just put out now, the music's killer. Love the music, absolutely love it.
Different.
The vocal in particular, very different. And on first listen, it's real easy to go, do I like this? But then by the time you're into the second or third song, you're like, I like this.
Oh, I loved it.
It's very different. And that's when you're reminded. It's, if I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, I feel like even though it's nothing like these bands, the vocals for some reason were reminding me a lot of like the Talking Heads and the Violent Femmes.
And Cake to a certain
extent.
extent.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. 100%. Those were the 3 bands I was thinking of, because at times it's talking, at times it's singing, at times it's rambling and it's strange. But then you realize, like, wow, that's the perfect fit for the vibe of this band.
Do me and you just have the same music taste? Like, do
Probably.
we just become best friends?
Probably, yeah. But it made me realize, like, oh yeah, that's that whole thing of like, you need to be different and doing your own thing and being confident, like proud of what you're doing. Don't worry about what people want to hear. Make your thing. And I feel like they're doing that. And I'm very excited to see what happens to them, because they've got a fun spark that could very well take them further, just depending on how it goes. But
Eric is talented. He's driven. He's
they get it, man.
He's got a vision for that band, and that is one of those bands where it is going to be his way or the highway. And I think some bands need that.
You do need that.
Some bands can be a cooperative and work that way it's very few and far between. But a lot of the times, the bands that are successful have one or two members that are driving it 100%. I don't know if you had that with your band. Like there was,
yeah, I was typically the person driving it. You know,
Okay.
I was typically the person saying like, we need to do this. I mean, there was one
practices today at 7 o'clock.
We rented a rehearsal space in Deep Ellum down at Bishop Manor, and
throwback.
Yeah, we rented a space down there. We were down there like 2 or 3 days a week after we got off work at like 11 o'clock at night practicing. And there was 1 week we did all our rehearsals with the lights off because I was like, we're not going to be one of these bands that stares at our instruments the whole time. You know, don't have that crutch of like, I don't want to look at the crowd. I'm going to watch my notes. Like you need to know how to play everything and never look down. Just stop looking at it. And we did
That's
like a week of practice.
idea.
We did like a week of practice with the lights off just to say, you know, stop looking at your fretboard. You know where these notes are. Stop. That's a comforting. That's your security thing that you're doing. You know, look out.
How goth of y'all. Yeah. I mean, that's a great idea though. And you know, you hit the nail on the head that you should be looking at the crowd. That's another thing that I fucking hate with a lot of bands that you'll see. You know, you have these amazing bands like Mean Motor Scooter and everybody that uses the stage, right? Noogie, all of them. You know, but then you have other bands, I'm not going to name names, but you just stand there like a bunch of pricks, like, and wonder why no one's liking your music because the energy is just dead when you do that.
Your music has to be really something special in order to stand still.
Yeah. Joshua Ray Walker is a beautiful point on that. Like he usually sits on a stool through his, but he is so talented and you just are driven to him that you're going to watch him play that set.
Yeah.
You know, same when I just saw Sex Sister Wives or something. I can't remember. They opened up for Apes of the State at Dada the other night.
Okay.
Which Apes of the State, I love folk punk, so check out Apes of the State. They're amazing. But what they she sat down on a stool and played their fucking heart out, and you still loved it. So there are some people that can do that, but you're gonna have to
be something special.
Yes, but they still had a look and like a feel about them doing it. And, you know, but there's these people that just have this huge stage and just don't make any use of it. Prime example, Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
When I've seen the Smashing Pumpkins, it's the most boring fucking performance ever because they literally just sit there and just play and that's it. And yeah, I guess some people like that, but for me, it's just, it turned me off of them. So... move around.
Well, because you are in an entertainment industry. If you want to be a recording artist, that's cool. But if you want to be a live show performer, there's got to be a little something there. You know, at least you want them to feel like you're feeling their enthusiasm at some point. But you know, speaking of folk punk, have you heard of this band, Bridge City Sinners?
Yes,
they're coming to Trees. I'm very excited about that.
Oh, when is that show?
I just saw on their tour dates. I think it's like maybe November or something.
Well, I was wondering if you were talking about MXPX a lot because they just announced a Dallas show too.
You know, MXPX will always have a special place in my heart, but I have seen a lot of MXPX shows, and when we were doing that Warped Tour hustle, they were one of the bands that was on it. So, I mean, I think that summer alone, you know, I probably heard 35 MXPX sets, you know, just standing out front, and it's great. I love them. It's like you meet some bands for a portion of your life, and it's always special, and then you just kind of, you're not there for the rest of their album releases, and that's kind of how it was for them. I think there's probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 albums that I really just, they'll always have that. If you put it on now, I still know every word. And then their later albums, it's like that's that next generation of MXPX fans.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And if I went to Waco and met Mike Herrera, I would still like fanboy out a little bit and be like, dude, I've got so many of your albums, you know.
That was like me with We Are Scientists. When I met him in person, I was just like, holy shit, these were like my childhood heroes, and now they're right in front of me. What do I say? If you listen to that interview, I'm so fucking nervous.
Not yet. I'll check it out.
So fucking nervous through that whole thing. But, you know, and then Drew with Kill Lincoln, that was another interview.
Sure.
Like, have you had that where you've met and interviewed a hero and you're just, trust me, like, me and you could talk for hours, right?
Sure.
For some reason, I get through those interviews real quick, even though those are the people that have been wanting to ask these questions for forever. But for some reason, when I get nervous, I fly through those interviews.
Gotcha. You know, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've just been real fortunate. I always had jobs and where I talk a lot. You know, waiting tables, those types of things. And then I'll tell you the career I'm in now afterwards. But it's a job where you're talking all the time. So something about that, I think honestly, that Warped Tour experience too was a big help of because that van looked so crazy and we looked like punk rockers and we had a polka dot van and Texas license plates. What was interesting is the venue security was different than the Warped Tour security. So where the bands parked, we were just getting waved into. So we were parking with all the major bands and we were just like trying to stay under the radar, you know? And you ended up kind of bumping elbows with them. Like they did barbecues at the end of every night. And so we learned at that time, I don't know what they did later on, but at that time, the newest band was like the barbecue band. They served all the food to all the other bands. And that was kind of a way, I think, for them to meet everyone and be introduced, but also pay your dues a little bit. So we would roll through after we just sold all these CDs and we would just each tip them, you know, like $30 each. Like, hey, you know, because they all kind of caught on that we weren't on this tour and we're eating their food, but we were just like, we'll pay. Like, you know, and we would end up talking to them. And I think that helped a lot, maybe realizing like, man, everybody's just human. Like they're just people. And
we're all dorks.
Yeah.
That's the one thing I've realized, like we're all just dorks.
And
man.
I think like, well, you know, after doing as many interviews as you've done, just having a conversation is a skill at times.
It is.
And I think I just got lucky early on that I had jobs where you were talking a lot or my money depended on talking. So I was able to work with it. But I don't think anybody's made me horribly nervous.
I will say I'm awkward when people come up to me at the show.
Really?
Well, it's like weird. I think having a conversation or meeting somebody at a venue is hard because it's loud as fuck. You really can't talk to them. Like I met somebody at this show the other night, the Apes of the State show, and I was like, hey, I'm Austin. He's like, oh, you do the podcast. And I'm like, yeah. And it was like hard because there was a lot of dead silences because one, it's like, it's fucking loud.
Sure.
And then two, it's just kind of like, you know, you're trying to get a feel for somebody, you know, in 30 to 40 seconds that you're talking with them. And COVID made me completely forget how to make small talk. I've been trying to revamp this for years. And the fact that I got a brain injury from an accident doesn't help. So it's hard. But I've noticed a lot of people in bands are awkward too. So it kind of works out.
I think on my show, the comics are always the easiest to talk to because they just have most of them have no ego.
Why are they always so serious? Like the comics that I hear on your show, they're always so serious. You think when you book a comic, you're going to get like a really funny conversation. And then they're always so dark. You're like, God damn, you're depressing.
You know, that may be my fault. I like talking to them if I can, not about comedy, because I feel like you run into those same, how long have you been doing comedy? You know, the same kind of thing. And I think, I'm sure you see the same thing, but for me, a lot of the episodes where we don't talk about whatever their craft is, those are the ones that get more listens. Because I think people really love getting to know that individual outside of whatever that profession is. And then for some reason, I think that helps them connect with then their music or their comedy more.
Well, that's what I do with my show.
Exactly. So that's kind of what whereas the musicians that I have on, I've noticed that those are more difficult interviews to get them to open up because I think a lot of musicians are worried about not looking cool.
Self-image.
Or, you know, there's that thing. And it's like, man, I don't think people care about that as much as you think they do. I think the more you let go of that, the more they actually probably like you.
It's true.
And
like, it's your real true self.
But you know, the comics, they go to open mics, they get humiliated a lot. They bomb, and it's just, they have horrible nights. And then they have a whole, you know, there's 30 comics that night who will shit on them and make fun of them. So I think their own ability to tolerate self-humiliation is so high that they don't care about it anymore. Whereas musicians, you know, you practice your craft alone in a room.
Their egos are so fragile.
I think it's harder for them to go like, well, that was a bad night. We'll just try it again, you know, and they worry about it more. When really, if they could somehow break that down. But that's probably the reason they went into music to begin with, is they had all these weird quirks or insecurities, and this was an outlet, you know. So it just comes with the territory. But you know what I would say if you're real nervous about talking to somebody is whatever you're there to interview them about initially, you know, don't talk about that at all. Just find a hobby. You know, like if it's a band that you love, how many interviews have they been in where they're just, you know, the music, how'd the band start, all this kind of stuff. And if you're worried that it's going to be weird like that, figure out whatever their hobby is, whatever common ground y'all have on something, you know, whether you love Frisbee golf or something, I don't know. And then they'll just go. because that's what they love, you know?
Well, it's true. And, so with my show, a lot of the bands sometimes it's their first real interview.
Right.
So with those interviews, I am more going into the background of like, how'd you all start? Who are you? Whatever. But then there's bands, like I've got Desi, who's done 1 million interviews coming on. And I even say in the beginning, like, if you're hoping for an origin story, this ain't it.
Right.
Like, we're going to go into other stuff. So I'd really, if you're an aspiring podcaster or interviewer, one of the biggest things that I can say for you is research.
Yeah.
Do your research before an interview. Find out who that person is, see what their other interviews have been, because from there, you're going to find questions that no one else has asked them, and that's going to make your interview more interesting.
Yeah. I mean, and I just book people I want to talk to, right? So I'm already interested.
Yeah, well, I guess you fucked up when you interviewed me, so here you go.
No, I mean, when you were like, hey, I'm doing this thing, as soon as I checked out what it was, I was like, oh, yeah, definitely. We're doing similar things. I definitely want to talk to this person because you have the same.
You have my favorite line in all of podcasting history.
What's that?
My penis looks like a button on a fur jacket.
Oh, that's right. That's
that
right.
was my
Mr. Haskins.
I fucking laughed at that for 5 minutes.
He was so genuine too. He really meant it.
Oh yeah. He's a trip, man.
But we're in this weird territory where you're part of these scenes, but you're not.
Oh yeah.
You're not performing on the stages. You're not really booking these shows or doing things. You are promoting them and you're helping them. So you're kind of in, kind of out, and so it's unique territory. And I think a lot of them have trouble understanding, like, what's in it for us, and they have a hard time thinking, no, we just like this. I enjoy doing this, and I would like to talk to you about it. And the comics, especially, they were like, well, what's the angle? And I'm like, that I think you're interesting.
Yeah, I've had a comic on a couple of comics, Sean K. the Showman, and he said the same thing. And I said, I felt like to him, I said, I feel like sometimes it's imposter syndrome.
Sure.
Like, I'm going to these, I'm putting myself into this genre that, a lot of these kids and bands have, crafted so carefully for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I'm worried, am I punk enough? Am I ska enough? Am I, does the community want me to do this? But then I have to remind myself, this is what I want to do. I'm doing this for me and to expose bands to a bigger audience.
Yeah.
So for me, it's hard because I have never been a musician, and I've kind of always been on my wife's coattails. She was the big interviewer, worked for radio stations, does all these amazing things, helps, promote and book these huge festivals and stuff like that. Shout out to the Deep Ellum Festival. That's going to be awesome. Last year was she got to, hang out with Run DMC and Bowling for Soup. And, it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Here I am interviewing Turd Cutter. I haven't yet. I would love to. But, that's a fucking name. We'll go into that. Like, I love some of these names.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like an imposter a lot of the times.
Well, my rant on all this, I've said it before, but if you want a healthy scene, no matter what that artistic scene is that you're into, right? It could be, you love taking pictures of different cities' peanut butter jars. I don't know whatever it is. But music, comedy, these things that I enjoy, like I said, I think some of the golden age of music for me was those 90s and 2000s eras, right? And I remember, to me, what made that special, right? So we had things like Warped Tour, where you could buy, what was it, a $25 ticket and watch, 30 bands. That's incredible. That's incredible, right?
Missed those days.
And by the way, Kevin Lyman, who put on the Warped Tour, has a podcast where he goes into all the Warped Tour stuff that happened. It's just about that, and I'm going through that. It's fantastic if you are like a music nerd and just want to hear about the logistics of doing the Warped Tour. But then, like you said, there used to be journalists, right? There used to be like beat writers. There used to be scouts for labels, right? There used to be people who just loved this shit. There were radio station DJs that were personalities, right? Here locally, right now we have the KXT local show.
Waffles.
Thank
Shout
you.
out. I love you, Waffles.
Yeah, and
Ben, that's a sexy little man peach.
But Waffles, that's another person who has, before this position, has been going to shows, caring about the scene, whether or not you like her music taste or her anything. She has been involved with
she's
this
huge
for
in the
years,
scene,
right?
Which the former host was good, but was not in the music scene.
Correct. And
was never around.
Right.
And you
need the person who goes to shows.
Exactly, and that's what Waffles is.
So I think if you want a healthy scene, you've got to have the bloggers, you've got to have the reviewers, you've got to have the podcasters, you've got to have the radio station. You've got to have this infrastructure. That way, when a band does go up for their first gig and they have no clue what's going on, some little blog writer who's got 80 readers locally might write about your show, and boom, there's your next booking, right? Or the DJ who is going to these shows throws you on one of the rotations, right? I mean, you're not from here, but our radio station for classic rock, 92.5, I can't even remember the guy's name right now, but he was a...
Bo and Jim?
No, not those guys. This was a late night guy, and he had like a real cool voice, and
which we do. Like, they should just call this the bass episode with our voices. They're gonna be like, who's who?
Well, he was the guy who you knew loved music, or he just had a great research team. But they,
if it's late night radio spot, chances are no, it was
right.
him. Yeah.
I'm thinking this person just loved, because they would always have the fact before the song. They'd always be like, yeah, ZZ Top wrote this when they were on a cocaine bender out in Greenbow, and that's why they called it "Spice Up My Life" or something.
Yeah, my dog ate their stash, man, and we were walking around. Yeah, those.
But they
guys
would have just the random rock and roll story that was associated with the album or the band or the person or the show, and
Same
you were
like,
just like, hell yeah, that's you need the people who love that craft doing things, even if it's not going to be fame and money, obviously, but it's important to that scene. And it does grow. It's like, this scene had a big hit when Central Track went away. And it's like that has its own things. It's like there's stuff about them that I liked and stuff that I didn't like. But I was happy that they were existing. And it's like, if you don't like the way something is done, make your own version of it, right?
Well,
if you want to review some things and do some stuff, go do that. We need more of that,
Well, that's... Central Track is one of those that, it's like Marmite. You either loved it or you hated it.
Yeah.
But one of the things I will say that I've noticed too a lot about this is that when a big station gobbles up one of us independents, like it almost takes them out of the scene, and then they kind of lose touch with the scene and are only repping like 5 or 10 people. Like I have not heard Pete Friedman's name since he went to WFAA. Like it's kind of one of those weird things where I'm sure he's doing amazing big things now, but it's like it almost took out the heart of him and like what Central Track meant for like Deep Ellum and that area.
Yeah.
And I think it's still kind of going. They release like an article maybe once a year or something.
Whatever it is,
it's
not.
It's a shell of what it was.
Yeah.
But that's a lot of local journalism. So it's one of those things. And I really hope Waffles doesn't enter into that category either, where the entity is gobbled them up, and are they going to have so much of their free time is just to do that show that they're not going to have time to hang out? But I don't think that Waffles loves the local scene. She would probably quit way before.
I was going to say,
stop going to
if
shows.
it is that, you can always leave. You know, either way, it'll be good experience. And then I think she'll throw into rotation a lot of bands.
Waffles is a friend, so I feel like I can say this honestly and truthfully. But I'm once again going to sing her praises, and then I'm also going to sing Andrew Sherman's praises.
Yeah,
he does the Dallas Famous podcast.
I was about to bring him up because when you were talking about Pete Friedman, he did a episode on there where he dove into a little bit of the rise and fall of Central Track. That was interesting.
I need to go back. I don't think I listened to that episode.
Yeah.
Andrew's going to be on one of the episodes on my show. I'm waiting until his current season ends, so that way I can have him on, and then people can just go and binge the whole season kind of thing. But, he's an amazing person to talk to. And we talked a lot about the current state of reporting and all that kind of stuff. And, he is another example of somebody that's helping promote the scene. And, he's not doing it for the money. He's not doing it for the fame.
Right.
He's doing it for the love of it and all that.
Well, and that's the key is pick the lane that you enjoy, do that, and do it well, and just have a good time with it. And it's like, at the very least, you're doing a service to this community that you enjoy, and that's it's a real important thing. It's like you need to do those things if you value having that art scene. And so all the people you just mentioned, Waffles, Andrew Sherman, it's like these things matter on a much bigger scale to that local scene. Because I mean that vinyl that I got to work with Brave Little House, like we were, once it was sent to pressing, you're reaching out to try to get promotion for it. You want to sell these things, right? And it can get a little disheartening when you realize how much of the infrastructure in these Dallas, Fort Worth are major cities that is still missing. And it's like there's these gaps that if you love music, you could fill in that gap pretty successfully.
Oh, yeah.
And some of it was disheartening. Like there was a couple major local publications that I reached out to their, quote, I'm using quotes because I'm a little sour about it still, music editors, I
know exactly what you're on about.
And, I was like, hey, my pitch was always, we've got this vinyl. It was because we recorded it in a cabin in East Dallas off White Rock Lake.
That's cool as shit.
And so I was like, hey, we did this local band and this local thing. It's a one-off thing. We think it's pretty interesting. If you're looking for an article or something, we would like this to be considered. And my thing was like, I'd like to send you a copy for free, obviously, and listen to it and see if you vibe with it. If not, give the record away to somebody you think might like it. And thanks for your consideration.
Yeah, run it as a promotional tool, like
whatever you like.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't have a vinyl record player. And it's like, you're the fucking music editor.
How the fuck do you not have a
How
vinyl?
are you the music editor? And this is a larger publication. And I was like, I just don't. It just makes me lose faith that you're even
I think
attempting.
I know who you're talking about, too. But we'll talk about that off air.
Yeah. And it was just like, sometimes it's good to just turn over and have only these passionate people that care, and I think we're getting into a lane. That's why I was excited to have you on. It's like we have two different lanes that are similar. What is that? Oh God, what is it?
But I feel like it doesn't matter. Like people are too, also at the same time, I think people are too worried, like podcasters, like we're sometimes too worried about getting into somebody else's lane or them coming into our lane.
Not worried about it at all.
Who cares? Like at this point, like if you're worried, like you want to do a country show, but like, there's already 10 local country shows or something, like don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Do you. Everything's going to be a little different. And to be honest, as long as you are promoting the bands, it doesn't matter if you have the same guests or whatever.
Nope.
You're still giving somebody some airtime, that the chance that somebody's never heard of them will listen to them on your show. They wouldn't have heard on my show or your show. So like, don't worry about it. And I feel like some podcasters, there's a bit of not hate, like I know I've pissed off some people and not for trying or something, but I think they're just like, yo, who's this guy? He got into the game 2 years ago and is all of a sudden out there and everything. It's like, you will always get out of something what you put into it.
Sure.
And don't hate on other people. Like that would be stupid for me to like hate other podcasters, because it's like, we're all just trying to do the same thing, which is further the scene or further the topic that we love.
And guess what? I listen to more than one podcast.
Same.
I think there's room.
I work a 9 to 5, man, and I usually have my headphones in. And one podcast I'll say I'm in love with right now, and I know it's kind of dorky. I love Antiques Roadshow.
Oh, come on, man. There's no hate on that. That's a fantastic show.
Well, one of the guys that does the evaluations has a podcast, and it's a 25 to 30 minute podcast, and they go and they do the backstory behind an object, and it's like the fact checking behind fact checking an object. And so like to me, but then there's other ones that are out there and everything, but I don't know where I'm going with this, but go check out that podcast.
Just
it's really awesome.
Podcast, man.
But like listen to other podcasts, listen to not just true crime, listen to music ones, whatever. There's something for everybody out there. And I think the second that we all stop trying to pretend we're too cool for school, it's going to be a lot better off in our world.
Absolutely. Well, let's wrap it up. But I do want to finish with, so this will come out this weekend, right?
Oh, shit. Quick turnaround. I'm like a month and a half.
Well, good for you. You at least have the
if I book you now, it's not coming out till February.
Well, at least you have the comfort of banking episodes. I like to keep mine just free flowing. I like a little bit of anxiety.
I was in the film industry for 12 years professionally. And so I learned about banking episodes because my wife used to do a podcast and would do it kind of weekly. Well, then it would be like, oh, I got to do something this week. And then before you know it, it's 3 months with no new episodes out kind of thing.
Well, what are you most excited about maybe over the next month or two that's happening around here?
Oh, shit.
What's something you're really looking forward to? Something people should maybe go check out?
First Fridays in Deep Ellum, man. The first Fridays of the month, the Deep Ellum Foundation does this awesome like free event where they bring out bands and like have a little market. And, they've had, the Mexican dancers out there. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name because I'll fuck it up. There's been bands like Loyal Sally. There's been bands like I said, I would love to see Overshare in that. I think are going to be on there eventually. But that's a cool event. There's all sorts of discounts throughout the neighborhood. I'm excited about my show. I've got a lot of cool bands coming up. I have an amazing filmmaker named Kiefer coming out. That's named Kiefer. He's done everything from like Street Outlaws. He was pretty much all of the Hurricane Katrina footage you've ever seen was from him.
Wow.
So he has, heart-wrenching stories about the hurricane that'll be coming out. I'm excited for there's tons of awesome bands that are going to be playing in Deep Ellum. Check out Dada on 3 Links' calendar. The city's got a lot. Oh, and hockey season starting. Hell yeah.
There we go.
Dallas Stars, baby. Can't wait. Cup is ours this year. Not sounding like a Cowboys fan at all, am I? It's like, we're number one.
There it is, man.
But,
dude, well, thanks so much for coming on, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. What's that whole thing where it's like, we're same, different, but same.
Man, I love you. Keep doing what you're doing. I love everything you do, man.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
The I'm a Fan of podcast, music, comedy, and more.